Chapter 2300. Rumble. There was a sound in everyone's ears. A crack was torn in the light barrier and Cui Hongshan's figure passed through it. Next was Jin Minghui. When he passed through, the crack had already healed. However, this healing was like two turbulent waves sandwiching Jin Minghui. Jin Minghui's face was a little pale. After all, there was a strong spiritual power in this brilliance that had a tendency to tear his body apart. However, just as the light engulfed Jin Minghui, his token also emitted a faint green and red light. These two lights wrapped around his entire body and blocked the surging light. Taking advantage of this moment, Jin Minghui passed through. Good boy! The means of the Sky Patrol City are really powerful. Even if it's a gold core cultivator or an early nascent soul cultivator, if they come here, I'm afraid they will suffer a great loss. Xiaohua was the last to pass through the brilliance. He could not help but feel a little speechless. However, thinking about it, it was normal. This was the teleportation array of the Sky Patrol City. Without strict defensive measures, once it was breached by a sword cultivator, the Sky Patrol City would belong to the sword cultivator. After entering the light barrier, there were several large teleportation arrays in front of them. They were similar to the ones Xiaohua had seen before, but the scale was much larger. It could teleport more than 10 people at a time. These teleportation arrays emitted a black and white brilliance from time to time, and groups of Path Sect disciples were teleported out. Could it be that there is no fixed destination? Seeing that his team was randomly assigned to a teleportation array, Xiaohua suddenly realized. Everyone is teleported to any place without any purpose, and then the team leaders go to the destination according to the instructions in the token. This way, even if a sword cultivator wants to find the purpose of this operation, it is impossible. Could it be that this operation is extremely important? It's your turn. A Sky Patrol City disciple in the late stage of Foundation establishment pointed to the teleportation array that had just been vacated and said to Cui Hongshan and the others. Yes. Cui Hongshan did not say anything and stepped into the teleportation array. After waiting for everyone to enter, Dui Ling could not help but ask, Senior, where does this teleportation array teleport to? Little girl, you will know when you get there. The cultivator smiled faintly and raised the small flag in his hand. A black and white brilliance flashed around Xiaohua and the others, and they disappeared. Next team! The cultivator's expression didn't change as he called out again. Inside the teleportation array, Xiaohua only felt his vision turn gray. That extremely familiar feeling of fainting appeared, but it only lasted for a moment before his eyes lit up again. Xiaohua didn't dare to be careless, and his divine sense immediately swept out. Oh! A shocked voice sounded in Xiaohua's ears. At this moment, Xiaohua's divine sense also scanned that person. It was actually a cultivator in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. Greetings, Senior! Xiaohua was slightly startled. He hurriedly withdrew his divine sense, raised his eyebrows, and bowed towards the source of the voice. You are not bad! That voice had already regained its calmness, and said faintly. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. He could now clearly see that this was a space with a radius of 3 meters. The space was surrounded by craggy stone walls, and there were some icicles and light green moss on the walls. An extremely cold chill instantly wrapped around him. Needless to say, this must be an extremely cold place in the northern part of the country of Xi. Moreover, since it was the other end of the teleportation array of the Sky Patrol City, it must be heavily guarded and even kept secret. If there were no Golden Core Realm cultivators guarding it, how could the Sky Patrol City be at ease? He was overthinking. Looking at Cui Hongshan and the others, the few Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators were still fine. Their figures were slightly staggering, and they looked like they couldn't stand the distance of the teleportation array. Looking again, the few Qi Refinement Realm cultivators were already paralyzed in the teleportation array. That's right, the Sky Patrol City doesn't seem to have given us special yellow talismans for teleportation. Xiaohua suddenly thought. This disciple used to be a body cultivator. Xiaohua understood the Golden Core Realm cultivator's meaning. That's right, in a distant teleportation array, without a yellow talisman to coordinate with the teleportation array, how could one resist the changes in space? Xiaohua being able to stand steadily in the teleportation array naturally surprised the cultivator. The Golden Core Realm cultivator didn't ask any more questions. He waved his hand and said to the dozens of Qi Refinement Realm cultivators beside him, "Quickly go and help them out. There will be another group of cultivators coming soon." Yes. The Qi Refinement Realm cultivators quickly came in and helped one person out of the teleportation array. "Senior, where is this place?" Xiaohua saw that Cui Hongshan and the others were still dispirited and didn't pretend anymore. He cupped his hands and asked, "Where is this place?" "Hee, you'll know when you get out." The Golden Core Realm cultivator laughed. "Your captain token naturally has a map of the route from here to here. As for where this place is, this old man won't tell you. After teleporting you here, this old man will have to move this temporary teleportation point. Telling you the location is meaningless." "Yes, this disciple understands." Xiaohua suddenly understood. He looked at the teleportation array again and smiled apologetically. "This junior is very curious. This teleportation array, can it be moved?" You're really curious." The Golden Core Realm cultivator laughed. Teleportation arrays are divided into two types, fixed and temporary. Fixed ones don't need to be said. As long as it's set up, it can't be moved. This is a temporary teleportation array specially set up for this operation. It's very simple and can only be used for a short period of time. It's also because of this that my Sky Patrol City didn't have time to make so many yellow teleportation talismans, causing you to suffer. At this point, the Golden Core Realm cultivator said meaningfully, "Little guy, this old man has been in charge of the teleportation array for a long time. You're the first cultivator who can walk out of the teleportation array normally without using a teleportation talisman. I'll leave this group of disciples to you. Although this old man isn't a teacher of the Imperial Thunder Sect, I'll have to remind you again. As the team leader, you must bring them back in one piece. Not a single one can be missing." "Yes, this disciple understands." Xiaohua didn't make it clear and replied respectfully, "Don't give up, don't abandon, don't abandon." "Good." The Golden Core Realm cultivator's eyes flashed with surprise and nodded. The Imperial Thunder Sect is indeed a famous sect in the country of Xi. A Foundation establishment disciple can speak such profound principles. This old man is truly impressed. Senior, this teleportation array. How did it move? And how was it set up?" Xiaohua suddenly revealed his true colors. If you were a disciple of my Sky Patrol City, this old man would consider. Unfortunately, you're a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Do you think this old man will tell you? A smile appeared on the Golden Core Realm cultivator's face. "We're all disciples of the Dao Sect." "Senior, why do you have to be so formal?" Xiaohua was also thick-skinned. "Ha!" The Golden Core Realm cultivator flicked his sleeve and said, "If you want to know, then use your Imperial Thunder Sect's Thunder Escape technique in exchange." "TSK. Senior, you're making things difficult for this junior." Xiaohua smiled. "How would this junior know about the Thunder Escape technique?" "Yes, aren't you making things difficult for this old man as well?" The Golden Core Realm cultivator smiled and flicked his sleeve. A yellow talisman appeared in midair and said, "Your disciples have rested. Take this escape talisman and activate your magic power to leave this place." "Yes, thank you, Senior." Xiaohua took the yellow talisman with a smile. Behind him, Cui Hongshan and the others had rested and were standing there listening to Xiaohua's banter. Xiaohua left an escape talisman for himself, and gave the others to Jin Mingwei. When everyone stuck the yellow talismans on their bodies and activated their magic power, their figures involuntarily flew up into the air and flew toward the top of the cave that was covered in frost. After waiting for half a cup of tea's time, the figures of Xiaohua and the others appeared above a barren glacier. Everyone's faces were slightly stunned. Even Xiaohua, when he released his divine sense at this time, could not sense that they had just arrived at the teleportation array here. Soon after, Xiaohua once again unleashed his Buddhist awareness. After scanning the surrounding dozens of kilometers, he discovered that it was completely barren. Other than a few groups of Dao sect disciples, who seemed to have just left like them, there were no traces of sword cultivators. Sigh, what can such a tight defense mean? Xiaohua sighed. It could only mean that the operation here was secretive, and that he had to face many powerful sword cultivators. He was naturally confident, but what about these 9 disciples? Should we also let the 3 qi refining disciples build their foundation? Xiaohua thinks to himself as his gaze sweeps over the 3 disciples who are still a little dizzy. But when he thinks that once these 3 disciples reach the foundation establishment stage, they will have to return to the Imperial Thunder sect. Perhaps those 2 disciples from the Heavenly Thunder Palace will also come. Xiaohua shakes his head. Let's wait until the war is almost over before we talk about it again. Zhenhua, how's your rest? Cui Hongshan's head was also a little unwell, as if he had a hangover. Captain Cui, it's really uncomfortable. Zhenhua frowned. Patrol Sky City is too stingy. They didn't even give us a single teleportation talisman. Then, let's find a place to rest for a while. Cui Hongshan hesitated slightly and ordered. There's no need. Xiaohua waved his hand and took out the flowing cloud flying boat. He said indifferently, We'll take the flying boat. Aren't you afraid that the 7 skills sect disciples will find out? Cui Hongshan asked curiously. No. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, Fellow Taoist Cui and senior brother Jin will control it. Just listen to my command. Okay. Cui Hongshan turned his head and glanced at Jin Minghui. They all understood what the Golden Core cultivators said next to the teleportation array. If they wanted to live, it was better to listen to Xiaohua. After boarding the flying boat, Jin Minghui casually flew slowly to the north. Cui Hongshan took out the captain's token and looked at it with his divine thought. His face showed a look of realization. He glanced at Xiaohua, who was sitting cross-legged and ignoring him, and handed the token to Jin Minghui. Oh? I see. After Jin Minghui looked at it, he nodded and activated his dermic power. The flying boat circled slightly and accelerated towards the northwest. -8. Chapter 2301. Hongshan, what exactly is the mission? Dui Qiming chuckled. Her vision was much higher than Cui Hongshan's. After discussing with Ming Mao, she had long determined that Xiaohua's cultivation was at the peak of the late stage of foundation establishment, which was comparable to the early stage of Golden Core. With such a powerful disciple with them, they naturally did not need to panic. The most important thing was that this guy did not care about the position of team leader, and was working hard for Cui Hongshan. As Cui Hongshan's future dual cultivation partner, how could she not be happy? Hearing Dui Qiming's question, Cui Hongshan glanced at the gloomy sky and said, Quanjin Mountain! Quanjin Mountain? Where is that? Not only had Dui Qiming not heard of it, even Su Qing was slightly stunned and asked softly. Sigh, of course we have not heard of it. Cui Hongshan sighed. Quanjin Mountain Spirit Stone Vein! Ah! Everyone exclaimed. Spirit Stone Vein! What are we going there for? Could it be that the sword cultivators are besieging the Spirit Stone Vein? Are they asking us to go and help them? Zhenhua asked naively. This? I don't think so. Cui Hongshan frowned. The token only said that we are to go to the Quanjin Mountain Spirit Stone Vein and defend it together with the disciples of Sky Patrol City. It should not have been discovered by the sword cultivators. I see. Dui Qiming suddenly understood and said, No wonder today's operation was so secretive. They were afraid that the sword cultivators would find out. If they found out, it would be troublesome. Yes, the spirit stone veins of other sects near Sky Patrol City are naturally secretive and may not be discovered by the sword cultivators. But our Dao sect has to set up defenses. If they find it intentionally, it will be a disaster. Not only that, if the sword cultivators obtain the spirit stone vein, their strength will increase greatly. Our Dao sect will lose many disciples. Actually, the elders in the meeting hall are overthinking. Su Qing smiled. The sword cultivators are training their disciples. If we make such a big fuss, it will be easy for them to find something to use against us. If the sword cultivators did not have the intention to seize the spirit stone vein, wouldn't it give them more ideas if they found it? How is that possible? Dui Ling retorted. Could it be that the Golden Core elders in the meeting hall are not as many as you think? Alas, I'm afraid that's really the case. Xiao Hua, who had been silent all this time, opened his eyes and said, Things really aren't as simple as Jinhua thinks. Xiao Hua, what do you think? When Dui Ling saw Xiao Hua speak, he was very happy and hurriedly asked. Xiao Hua glanced at Cui Hongshan, then looked at the people beside him and asked, Do you all know about the abnormal change in the heaven and earth spiritual energy of Daybreak Continent? Cui Hongshan hesitated for a moment, but Dui Qiming nodded without hesitation. This concubine has heard Master mention this before. Yes. Jin Minghui, who was controlling the flying boat, also nodded and replied. This matter was still a secret decades ago. That is, 3 years ago, most of the Jinan stage cultivators of our Thunder Palace knew about it. I've also heard of it. However, according to Master, even though this matter is of great importance, it won't affect us much. Dui Qimeng reminded. The change in the spiritual qi of heaven and earth is extremely slow, Xiao Hua said indifferently. For the time being, it doesn't have much of an effect on us cultivators. But what about those spiritual herbs? They were born from the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. Junior brother Xiao, you don't have to worry about this. Our Thunder Palace has already made preparations, and even the Thunder Palace has already started planting the spiritual herbs. Zhen Minghui said with a smile. What about the spiritual stone vein? Xiao Hua said again. With the change in the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, the spiritual stones can't be regenerated, so wouldn't the original spiritual stones be even scarcer? Junior brothers, have you all participated in the EG of Century City? You must have felt something, right? When everyone heard this, their expressions changed greatly. Of course, they had been to the EG, but they were different from Xiao Hua. There weren't many things in their storage bags, so how could they sense it during the exchange? Now that they said it, how could they not know if it was true after thinking about it carefully? In that case, the spiritual stone vein of Spring Gold Mountain is really important. Cui Hongshan thought more. The sword cultivators will most likely attack this place. That's for sure. Xiao Hua sneered. The Golden Core Masters in the conference hall are afraid that the sword cultivators will find these spiritual stone veins if we send reinforcements. But they have no choice but to send reinforcements, so they have no choice but to scatter and act so mysteriously. However, no matter how strict the operation is, there will always be a mistake. We don't know which spiritual stone vein this mistake will happen in, so we can only hope that we won't encounter it. Yes, this was also the scruples of the Golden Core cultivators in the conference hall of Century City. Xiao Hua was right. We'll do our best and leave the rest to fate. Cui Hongshan saw that everyone was a little discouraged and hurriedly said, We'll do our best. There's no need to think too much. Yes, we understand. Jinhua and the others said in unison. Xiao Hua thought for a moment, clapped his hand, and took out a storage bag. He handed it to Dui Qiming and said, This is what I exchanged at the EG. See if any of the senior brothers or martial nephews have any use for it. Dui Qiming took the storage bag with some doubts. She scanned it with her divine perception and saw that it was a qi replenishing and blood elixir commonly used by qi refinement and foundation establishment. She smiled and said, Junior brother Xiao is considerate. I thank you on behalf of them. No need to thank me. Xiao Hua waved his hand. I've taken such a big advantage of you. How can I feel at ease if I don't take out something? After saying that, Xiao Hua didn't speak anymore, and closed his eyes to adjust his breathing. Under Dui Qiming's arrangement, the others divided the elixir in the storage bag and hid far away from where Xiao Hua was resting. They looked at Xiao Hua with reverence and some envy. Xiao Hua was really too mysterious. The shocking cultivation of Chicken Crow Mountain and the generous amount of elixir he gave out was far from the poor disciple of Myriad Thunder Valley in their hearts. Even Dui Chiming was a little stunned. The elixir in the storage bag was definitely not something that Chui Hongshan could take out. Senior brother Minghui, you rest for a moment and let me steer the boat. Chui Hongshan's heart also felt uncomfortable for no reason. He turned his head and sat next to Jin Minghui as he instructed in a low voice. Jin Minghui smiled and said, I just steered the boat and was flying happily. You just wait at the side for a moment. Chui Hongshan didn't answer and placed his hand on the boat. He activated his true origin and fused his magic power into the flying boat. There was a moment of silence on the flying boat. Only the whistling of the cold wind could be heard, and the snowflakes began to drift down from the dark clouds that were as gloomy as winter's day. Suddenly, Xiao Hua said in a low voice, Senior brother Jin, let's lower the flying boat by 10 feet and fly towards the left. -8. Chapter 2302. This? Jin Minghui was slightly taken aback. He glanced at Chui Hongshan and didn't understand. Fly west. Chui Hongshan also didn't understand. However, he knew that since Xiao Hua had spoken, it was best to listen to him. However, after flying for an hour, Xiao Hua said again, All right, let's go higher. Continue to fly northeast. Yes. Jin Minghui responded and adjusted the direction again. For the next 2 days, there would be a few times every day. Xiao Hua would give a few instructions and fly in different directions and at different altitudes. Jin Minghui and Chui Hongshan were somewhat puzzled at first, but gradually, they had some understanding in their hearts. Both of their eyes flashed with astonishment, but this astonishment also brought with it even more joy. Dui Ling couldn't help but blink as he moved closer to Xiao Hua and whispered, Xiao Hua, you're not making fun of Captain, are you? Flying high one moment and low the next? Could it be that there are some restrictions in the sky? Looking at this female cultivator who kept calling his name, Xiao Hua smiled and said, Why don't the others ask? Are you the only one who wants to ask? Are you fighting for Jin Minghui? Nope. Dui Ling blinked at him and said, I'm in the same group as you. Why would I fight for them? It's just that I saw that they were having a hard time flying, so I wanted to ask you. We are magnanimous people. There's no need to lower ourselves to their level. If they don't want to suffer, then get a higher grade flowing cloud flying ship. We just need to put in spirit stones and activate it a little. For this kind of low-grade flying ship, we really need them to put in some effort. Xiao Hua said without any trace of politeness. And that's right. They are the captains. If they don't put in some effort, who will? Dui Ling laughed and said, However, let's stop before going too far. We've already taken many detours in these 2 days. Next, let's just fly directly. If we can arrive earlier, then we should. Dui Ling. Dui Chiming berated in a low voice. What do you know? Come back quickly. How could Dui Chiming not know about Dui Ling's favorable impression of Xiao Hua? Although she knew that Xiao Hua already had Xue Xue and Huan Hua Sex Fairy Hong Xia, she still wanted Dui Ling or Ming Mao to get familiar with Xiao Hua. No one said that a cultivator could only have one female cultivator on dual days. Since there were 2, what harm was there in having 3? Of course, if Chui Hongshan wanted to, he could forget about it. Martial uncle. Dui Ling truly wanted to mediate the conflict between Xiao Hua and Chui Hongshan out of goodwill. Seeing Dui Chiming berate him, he felt somewhat wronged. I'm afraid there's some danger ahead. That's why Junior Martial Brother Xiao changed the direction of the flying boat. Dui Chiming had no choice but to voice her conjecture as she looked towards Xiao Hua. Isn't that so, Junior Brother Xiao? Maybe it's possible. Xiao Hua smiled but didn't say anything. He closed his eyes again. How could that be? Dui Ling pursed his lips and said, Xiao Hua is only at the initial stage of foundation establishment. Although he has a true-blood Dharma body and his strength is comparable to the late stage of foundation establishment, His divine perception can't be more powerful than martial Uncle Jin's, right? Hearing Dui Ling's nagging, Jin Minghui smiled bitterly. He had already released his divine perception when Xiao Hua had first warned him. He had scanned the area in front of him more than once. Although he had looked again and again, he had never seen anything wrong. If he couldn't see anything wrong, then Cui Hongshan definitely couldn't see anything. These few days, he could only let Xiao Hua wander around by the nose. Another 10 days passed. Just like before, Xiao Hua would let Jin Minghui and Cui Hongshan change direction every half a day. After that, no one asked anymore. Even Dui Ling knew that flying like this was already very far from Sky Patrol City. There were already sword cultivator disciples moving around in the vicinity. They hadn't encountered any swordsmen for more than 10 days. If Xiao Hua hadn't been able to see them in advance, what other explanation could there be? Everyone felt even more admiration for Xiao Hua. It was noon again today. The miserable sunlight was faintly sprinkled down. The fluttering snowflakes had disappeared, and the entire sky was devoid of life. Xiao Hua was cultivating when he suddenly opened his eyes. What's wrong? Is something the matter? Dui Ling was the most concerned about Xiao Hua and immediately asked anxiously. Xiao Hua squinted his eyes, but the expression in his eyes couldn't be seen. Do we have to change direction again? Jin Minghui also asked anxiously. The flying boat slowed down. No need. Go straight, Xiao Hua said coldly. Jin Minghui nodded and continued to urge the flying boat. To the right. Xiao Hua didn't sit down this time. Instead, he stood at the bow of the boat, placed his hands behind his back, and looked forward. The whistling cold wind blew through the flying boat's defense, blowing Xiao Hua's hair and robe up. A fierce aura was emitted from Xiao Hua's body. Okay. Jin Minghui agreed without hesitation. Junior brother Su, you haven't used your fire-controlling fan for a long time, right? Do you want to exercise today? Xiao Hua suddenly spoke, but his eyes weren't looking at them. Oh? Yes. Su Qing was obviously caught off guard and hurriedly jumped up from the flying boat. Okay, you all get ready. Xiao Hua flicked his sleeves and said coldly. This Xiao was wrong. Then, Xiao Hua didn't say where he was wrong and just stood there quietly. He really had the demeanor of an expert. They flew straight for nearly an hour. During this time, Xiao Hua actually changed direction again and again, as if he was chasing. Io, sword cultivators! Suddenly, Jin Minghui cried out in alarm. Dui Qiming and the others also discovered it, and couldn't help but become nervous like Jin Minghui. It was no wonder that Dui Qiming and the others saw through their divine senses that there were about 30 swordsmen, all of whom were at the unsheathed sword realm. They were casually flying in their direction on their swords. When Jin Minghui and Dui Qiming's divine senses swept over these sword cultivators, these swordsmen had already discovered it. The swordsmen were already flying over. Don't be afraid. Back then, Rooster Crow Mountain had 1,000 swordsmen and hundreds of unsheathed swordsmen. Didn't we also fly out safely? Xiao Hua said coldly. These crooked melons and cracked dates are only here to deliver flying swords to us. Pfft. Hearing Xiao Hua call unsheathed swordsmen crooked melons and cracked dates, Ming Mao couldn't help but laugh. She charmingly glanced at Xiao Hua. Go to the left. Pretend to escape. Xiao Hua instructed in a low voice. Okay. Jin Minghui circulated his magic power, and Cui Hongshan also stood up from the flying boat. His divine senses weren't enough to see the swordsman, so he could only walk to Dui Qiming's side. Dui Qiming whispered a few words, and Cui Hongshan nodded slightly. He glanced at Xiao Hua and didn't say anything else. In just the time it took for an incense stick to burn, they could already see the 30 sword cultivators whistling over from behind the flying boat. Beneath the feet of these sword cultivators were flying swords that radiated light in all directions. They were all different colors and looked very beautiful. Xiao Hua, can you leave a flying sword for this concubine? Dui Ling suddenly asked. Why? Xiao Hua asked curiously. You don't cultivate flying swords? This concubine came here to fight, so I have to leave something as a memento. Dui Ling smiled and said, Otherwise, I will lose face when I return. And I understand. Xiao Hua turned to look at the excited sword cultivators and said, Fly down! Jin Minghui immediately controlled the flowing cloud-flying boat to rush down the snow-covered hill. Damn it! Why are the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect so good at pretending? Seeing Jin Minghui's realistic performance, Xiao Hua was somewhat stunned. Haha! It's actually the bastards from the Imperial Thunder sect. This sword thought they were disciples of the Seven Skills sect. The one in the lead was a tall swordsman with a black beard on both sides of his face. Go! The swordsman formed a sword seal with both hands, and the fiery sword light under his feet split into two with a whoo sound. It pierced straight towards Jin Minghui and Dui Qiming, who were steering the boat. He shouted, This daddy made the first move, so this daddy wants to have a taste of that beautiful lady first. See, hearing this, Cui Hongshan's face instantly changed. It was as if the rock under his feet had been frozen solid for 10,000 years. Go! 2 lightning pearls flew out from Cui Hongshan's hands and nimbly arced through the air, attacking the 2 swordsmen. Little gigolo! You still dare to make a move! The swordsman didn't care at all. He slightly changed the direction of one of his flaming swords and stabbed towards the lightning pearl. Kacha! The 2 lightning pearls collided with each other, and a thumb-sized bolt of lightning struck the flying sword. Crackle! The fiery light of the flying sword and the thunder light dimmed all of a sudden, revealing its fist-thick true body. Kaka, the Imperial Thunder sect has long since declined. The swordsman laughed loudly and urged his sword origin. A fiery red sword light came out from the flying sword and hit the lightning pearl that had just flown to the side. With a ka sound, the lightning bead lost control and flew diagonally into the air. Hongshan! Dui Qiming was very anxious. Seeing Cui Hongshan's pale face, she hastily slapped her hand and the lightning bottle flew out from her storage bag. What's the hurry? Xiao Hua coldly said. It was unknown whether he was talking to Dui Qiming or Cui Hongshan. As soon as his voice fell, Xiao Hua's figure suddenly rose from the flying boat and rushed towards the swordsman at an extremely fast speed. Sword cultivators' flying speed was originally fast, and Xiao Hua was even faster. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Hua flew in front of the flying sword. Ha! Another one has come to court death! The swordsman once again controlled his sword, wanting to cut down Xiao Hua under his sword. Unfortunately, although the flying sword was stabbing towards his head, Xiao Hua's figure slightly swayed and easily dodged the flying sword in a situation where it couldn't be avoided. The swordsman was greatly surprised. Sword cultivators had always used this kind of close combat method to deal with cultivators with higher realms. This was the first time he saw a cultivator take the initiative to fight in close combat. Unfortunately, just as he let out a strange cry, Xiao Hua shook his Taoist robe. The swordsman suddenly felt a fierce and almost irresistible force appear out of nowhere and tightly wrap around him. The sword origin around his body completely solidified, and he was simply unable to mobilize it. Not good! The swordsman was greatly alarmed. Just as he was about to open his mouth and spit out a small sword to break this restriction, Xiao Hua waved his hand again. A golden light flashed and cut the swordsman in half from the waist. The 2 halves of the corpse fell from the sky. -8. Chapter 2303. 2 fiery flying swords also fell diagonally along with the corpse. Oh! The 2 swordsmen closest to that swordsman had just activated their flying swords when they unexpectedly saw a swordsman, who had always been a one-hit kill, being killed by an early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator. They couldn't help but be stunned. They glanced at each other, and each of their flying swords mercilessly stabbed at Xiao Hua from 3 directions. A flying sword like plum blossoms tore apart the joy in the young girl's eyes. A flying sword like the scorching sun nearly ignited the youth of a hot-blooded youth. A flying sword like a cool breeze, gentle like the charm of a fairy's tongue. These 3 swords had already enveloped Xiaohua's entire body, and the intense sword intent seemed to want to tear apart the fierce wind. Whoosh whoosh, Xiaohua's figure suddenly moved, leaving behind an afterimage in the air. He had already left the wind of the 3 swords behind him. Like a boorish man who didn't understand romance, he was even more like a gust of wind brushing against willows. His Taoist robe fluttered continuously, and then 3 golden flashes followed. Another 3 corpses fell from the air. Ah! Kill! Seeing 4 swordsmen killed by Xiaohua as soon as they came face to face, the remaining swordsmen were furious. 20 or so swordsmen simultaneously activated their flying swords and stabbed at Xiaohua. 20 or so flying swords. How could 3 flying swords compare? Just the flashing sword light was enough to dazzle people's eyes. Jie! A sound rang out. Xiaohua's shoulder leaped, and the phoenix Dharma body flew out from his body. The Dharma body, which was nearly 300 meters long, immediately covered the area around Xiaohua. The clear cry of the phoenix resounded through heaven and earth, piercing into the swordsman's ears like a sharp awl. Following the cry of the phoenix Dharma body, 2 enormous wings spread out. Lightning as thick as a thumb flashed between the wings. In an instant, the 20 or so flying swords were knocked askew. However, there were still several flying swords that broke through the phoenix Dharma body's defense and stabbed at Xiaohua. Kachacha, the phoenix Dharma body's 2 claws swiftly clawed forward. Lightning as thick as a fist was born again, precisely hitting these flying swords, mercilessly knocking them out of the air. Ah! The cultivators who drew their swords used their primordial spirits to control their swords. The phoenix Dharma body repelled all the flying swords, so their primordial spirits were naturally damaged. They also deeply experienced the vast power of lightning above the phoenix Dharma body. They couldn't help but be shocked. But Xiaohua didn't give them any time to be shocked or hesitate. The phoenix celestial body flapped its wings, and the dark clouds in the sky suddenly tumbled like a tidal wave. Crack! The phoenix celestial body waved its claws again, and several thick bolts of lightning descended from the sky, striking several sword cultivators at lightning speed. Without a doubt, those sword cultivators were instantly struck down from the clouds. At the same time, Xiaohua wasn't slow either. His figure flew up again, and everywhere he went, he used the heaven and earth sleeve technique, and the soaring dragon scissors followed. He was like a wolf in a flock of sheep, slaughtering the swordsmen one after another. Ah! Not only were the sword cultivators stunned, even Cui Hongshan and the others on the flowing cloud-flying ship were stunned. Last time on Chicken Crow Mountain, when Xiaohua showed his invincible might, they were pretty much scared out of their wits. They only thought of running away, so they really didn't observe carefully. Now that they saw Xiaohua actually encounter sword cultivators, he didn't say anything and went all out to kill them. Moreover, his methods were truly swift and fierce. The sword cultivators who drew their swords were simply no match for him. How could they not be shocked? It was still the same sentence. This is a Foundation establishment cultivator? Go, those sword cultivators haven't died yet. Jin Minghui came to his senses quickly and pointed at the sword cultivators who were struck down by the phoenix Dharma body's lightning drawing technique. Yes. Du Aichiming, Cui Hongshan, and the others responded and flew out, heading toward the sword cultivators who were already beaten up by Xiaohua. Run! Seeing that only a dozen sword cultivators were killed in a short moment, how could the remaining sword cultivators dare to hesitate? They flew in all directions at the same time. Want to leave? Leave your lives here, Xiaohua said coldly. Just now, when you were feeling good, you didn't think about now. Jin Minghui, capture those sword cultivators. As he spoke, Xiaohua urged the phoenix Dharma body to send down a few more lightning bolts. He himself flew up again and rushed toward a sword cultivator at an extremely fast speed. The soaring dragon shears slashed at the second sword cultivator. Even so, there were still 5 sword cultivators who escaped from everyone's siege. Xiaohua grabbed the sword cultivator's neck with one hand and looked at the sword cultivator who had already escaped several tens of feet away. He frowned slightly. It wasn't difficult for him to kill these 5 sword cultivators. He really had a lot of methods, but he wasn't willing to reveal them. Humph! You'd better try this! Xiao Hua snorted coldly. He exerted strength in his hand and crushed the sword cultivator's throat. Then, he patted his hand and took out the soul-absorbing bell and the toad. The soul thread on his forehead also stretched out. Ding dang dang! An extremely ear-piercing sound rang out. The 4 swordsmen abruptly stopped in midair, and then fell down like boulders. As for the swordsman who flew the furthest, his body swayed slightly, and the sword light around him flashed. Then, he flew again. Xiao Hua was slightly surprised. His figure flew and directly chased after him. Those sword cultivators who were struck by Xiao Hua's lightning bolts into the air, although they didn't die, their primordial spirits were greatly damaged. They were good targets for Zhenhua and the others to practice on. When Xiao Hua killed the last sword cultivator who escaped and returned, Dui Ling and the others had also killed most of the remaining sword cultivators. Xiao Hua landed on the hill. He reached out and grabbed a sword cultivator who was struck down by the soul-absorbing bell. His soul thread then entered the sword cultivator's glabella. Inside the sword cultivator's mind, there was also a mysterious dark cloud. However, that dark cloud was clearly a lot more solid. Its outer layer seemed to be wrapped by something sticky. At this moment, the dark clouds had already been torn apart like cotton, and they were torn apart. It didn't take shape. And sword cultivators are indeed powerful. Otherwise, how would I deal with soul cultivators? Xiao Hua nodded inwardly. He flung his hand, and the sword cultivator's corpse fell to the ground. He stretched out his hand and looked at the thing in his hand that looked like a withered leaf. He thought, just now, that sword cultivator didn't fear my soul-absorbing bell. I'm afraid it was the effect of this thing. Although this thing can create a barrier around the soul, it's indeed very powerful. Could it also be a soul tool? This thing was naturally discovered by Xiao Hua from the sword cultivator's mind that escaped just now. Damn it, this sword cultivator has this thing. Maybe other sword cultivators also have this thing. Xiao Hua was immediately somewhat depressed. He didn't think of this matter. Previously, there were many cultivators' souls that he didn't check. Kachacha, a few thunderous sounds were heard. It was from Dui Qiming's thunder bottle that flew out and struck a sword cultivator flying. That sword cultivator was originally a second-grade drawing sword cultivator, whose cultivation was higher than Dui Qiming's. However, after being struck by the Phoenix Dharma body's lightning, his sword essence was damaged. He didn't have time to take any medicinal pills. Even the lightning in his body was still entangled with the sword essence, preventing the sword essence from circulating and healing. How could he resist Dui Qiming's thunder bottle? Barely managing to control her sword to balance her body, Su Qing waved her fire-controlling fan. The surrounding spiritual chi of heaven and earth was sucked into the fan. A tongue of fire descended from the sky and trapped her. -8. Chapter 2304. The sword light around the swordsman's body faintly appeared, and he curled up like a hedgehog. Although the flames were fierce, they could hardly break through his defense. Zi-la-la. Another sound that made the swordsman's heart tremble was heard. It was actually Zhenhua's thunder-trapping bead. A seemingly weak lightning covered his head. The swordsman hurriedly raised his hand, and a sword light appeared in his palm, sweeping a large gap in the lightning net. However, the rest of the lightning still fell on the sword light on the swordsman's body. This lightning wasn't very powerful, but when it fell on the sword light, a purple-red color suddenly appeared in the sword light. It was the lightning that was wreaking havoc in the swordsman's body. Under the pincer attack, the sword light suddenly dimmed. Su Qing's flames took advantage of this and immediately ignited the swordsman's entire body. At the same time, the other 3 swordsmen were easily killed by the combined forces of Cui Hongshan, Jin Minghui, and the others. At this point, the 30-plus swordsmen were completely annihilated by the Imperial Thunder Sect's first team. And 30 drawn swordsmen is this young master's limit? Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over, and he had a plan in his heart. If he didn't reveal his full strength, he would have to protect these 9 Imperial Thunder Sect disciples and not let a single swordsman escape. He could only face 30 drawn swordsmen, and there couldn't be many drawn swordsmen. The chances of 30 drawn swordsmen appearing in the first stage of the battle aren't many, right? Xiao Hua thought to himself. Jinhua Dui Ling, bring the corpses of these swordsmen over. Xiao Hua withdrew his phoenix celestial body and instructed them. Yes. Dui Ling answered crisply, her face full of excitement. Just now, she used lightning strike to smash a drawn swordsman into the ground from midair. This was definitely something she could show off in the future. Apart from Cui Hongshan and Jin Minghui, who didn't move, Dui Qiming, Ming Mao, and the rest of the 7 people all moved. They flew to different places and brought the corpses of the 30-plus swordsmen over. The swordsmen killed by the lightning and fire didn't seem to be much, but the swordsmen killed by the soaring dragon shears were very miserable and bloody. Dui Qiming and the other 2 female cultivators couldn't bear it. Even Cui Hongshan frowned slightly. Xiao Hua saw this and didn't say anything. He only said, "Burn their corpses and take out everything from their storage pouches. Everyone can choose a flying sword. If there are any pills, spirit herbs, spirit stones, and other items from my Dao sect in the storage bag, please distribute them to everyone. As for the rest, I will keep them." Xiao Hua's words were somewhat overbearing, but no one had any objections. "Ah? Captain Cui, this? Why are there so many pills and spirit stones in the storage bags of these swordsmen?" Chiu Su was the first to realize that something was wrong and hurriedly shouted. "Isn't it obvious? I wonder how many Dao sect disciples have died at their hands." Cui Hongshan's brows relaxed when he saw these items. You're exaggerating." Xiao Hua didn't think too much about it. Seeing so many things come out of the swordsman's storage pouch, he was also shocked. He couldn't help but feel regret. Fortunately, Dui Qiming was extremely tactful. She gathered everything into a few storage pouches and only took half of the medicinal pills, spirit herbs, and spirit stones. She didn't take any of the magic tools or treasures and left them all in the storage pouches. She then brought a few more storage pouches to Xiao Hua and said with a smile, "Junior brother Xiao, these swordsmen were all killed by you, so it's fine for us to take a little advantage of you. You should take these." Seeing Dui Qiming like this, Xiao Hua felt embarrassed. He took the storage pouches and took out the pills and spirit herbs. Then, he took out the 30 flying swords and said with a smile. Dui Ling said it just now, and this Xiao also agreed. Everyone will get a flying sword. No one can take it. Otherwise, this Xiao won't have any face. Ha ha. Hee. Dui Ling was very happy and almost jumped up. However, she wasn't in a hurry to be the first to choose. Instead, she looked at Cui Hongshan and Jin Minghui. Cui Hongshan also liked these flying swords, but when he saw Xiao Hua's smile, he still felt unhappy. He hesitated in his heart. This Jin's thoughts are the same as Dui Ling's. Moreover, these are the flying swords of the drawing swordsmen. They are no small matter. If we don't take them now, when will we? Captain Cui, this Jin will pick first. As he spoke, Jin Minghui's divine sense swept over and picked up a flying sword that was 3 inches long. There were faint flames rising from the inside of the sword, and he held it in his hand happily. Although Xiao Hua directly called out his name just now, he didn't seem to feel that it was inappropriate. This Su won't be polite either. Su Qing went forward with a smile and also picked a sword. Xiao Hua looked and his heart moved. His divine sense swept over the storage pouches and he picked up a few sword slips to check. Soon after, Ming Mao and the others also picked up a sword each. In the end, only Cui Hongshan and Dui Qiming didn't have a choice among the Foundation establishment cultivators. Seeing Dui Ling and the other 2 aura-refining disciples' eager expressions and Cui Hongshan's hesitant expression, Dui Qiming sighed. She took a step forward and said with a smile, "Hongshan, I want 2 flying swords. You, don't pick." And Chui Hongshan's heart lightened and he pretended to be indifferent as he responded. Just as Dui Qiming was about to randomly pick 2 flying swords, her figure paused for a moment, and her gaze fell on 2 unremarkable flying swords at the edge of the room. With a wave of her hand, 2 similar-looking flying swords fell into her hands. "Oh, martial uncle, these 2 flying swords are so ugly," Dui Ling complained. "I'm afraid they're the worst among these flying swords, right?" Dui Qiming smiled and said, "That's not necessarily true. Maybe these flying swords are used by those 3rd-grade swordsmen." As she spoke, her gaze swept over Xiaohua, who had just transmitted a message to her, as if nothing had happened. Soon after, Dui Qiming, Jinhua, and Bai Sugu each picked a flying sword that they liked. "As for these magic tools, each person can also take 2. Xiaohua received the flying swords and waved his hand, taking out about 20 magic tools. "Haha, that's great, that's great!" Dui Ling and Jinhua clapped their hands and each chose 2 magic tools of slightly lower quality without hesitation. Seeing Xiaohua's generosity, everyone was happy and didn't hold back. Dui Qiming still chose 4 magic tools and put them into her storage bag. "And bring your flying swords over." After giving them some trivial things that Xiaohua didn't care about, Xiaohua finally said, "These flying swords still have the primordial spirits of sword cultivators. I'm afraid they can't be used. This Xiao will help you erase them." "Okay." Dui Ling didn't understand these things. When he heard Xiaohua mention it, he was naturally the first to agree and took out the flying sword that had a faint plum blossom on it. Xiaohua took the flying sword and a green and red sword light flashed from his hand, wiping it on the flying sword. The sword light of the flying sword instantly dimmed, and even the faint plum blossom from before had disappeared. "This?" Dui Ling saw the unsightly appearance of the flying sword and pouted. "Hee, don't be unsatisfied." Xiaohua smiled and stuffed the flying sword into his hand. "There's a sword cultivator's primordial spirit inside the flying sword. Be careful, he might take over your body. You keep that sword cultivator in your storage bag every day. Aren't you afraid?" "Yes, yes." Dui Ling came to his senses and became happy again. After Xiaohua erased all the primordial spirits of the flying swords, he instructed, "Senior Brother Jin, let's get on the ship. Let's go in the same direction as before." "Yes." Jin Mingwei set up the flying boat. Everyone boarded the flying boat and flew in the direction they came from. Xiaohua still sat in a corner of the flowing cloud flying boat. The other disciples were a little far from him. They gathered at the side and took out their own flying swords, gesturing nonstop and showing off their own gazes. Xiaohua was very happy in his heart. He clapped his hands and the palm-sized withered leaf appeared in his hand. Then, he took out a sword slip. This sword slip was taken from the swordsman's storage pouch. Xiaohua looked at it for a moment and frowned. This withered leaf was called a spirit armor, and the method to control it was mainly based on sword energy and primordial spirit. However, Xiaohua clearly felt that this item should be a soul item. Using sword energy to control it was probably the same as using the Dao Sect's method to cultivate the soul technique. After thinking for a moment, Xiaohua put away the sword slip and released the soul strand. When the soul strand touched the withered leaf immediately emitted a faint green light and gradually became smaller. Great! Xiaohua was secretly happy. He put away the soul strand and the green light turned into the size of a mungbean. It flew into his transcendence eye and then followed the soul strand to the side of the mysterious dark cloud. Chui Hongshan and the others naturally saw the green light and saw it fly into Xiaohua's glabella. Their eyes flashed with surprise as they exchanged glances with each other. Then, they looked at Xiaohua's safe and sound appearance before turning their gazes outside the airship. It was as if they didn't notice anything. Xiaohua was really too mysterious. They didn't think much of it before, but the more they interacted with him, the more they didn't understand. They were all disciples of the Imperial Lightning School and Myriad Thunder Valley, but the difference between them wasn't just big. Chui Hongshan was even more certain now. Even if his master was helpless, no. Even if all the disciples of the myriad Thunder Valley were to face off against the 30 or so swordsmen, they would have been completely wiped out. There was no way the situation would have been reversed like this. Xiao Hua, he infiltrated my myriad Thunder Valley. What is he planning? Cui Hongxun couldn't help but be puzzled. Xiao Hua put away the spirit armor around the dark cloud. The green light was entangled by countless soul strands and immediately grew in size. It was a green armor that looked like a fishing net. Xiao Hua thought for a moment. The soul strands slowly trembled and tried to transmit different kinds of fluctuations to the spirit armor. After less than an hour, the spirit armor suddenly emitted an extremely bright light. Lines appeared on the green armor, and these lines were formed by runes that were entangled with each other. These runes were similar to the green seal text. Countless runes rapidly circulated and gradually grew in size. The spirit armor flew toward the dark cloud under the guidance of the soul strands and firmly protected the dark cloud. The dark cloud's surface also seemed to be somewhat solid. -8. Chapter 2305. Haha, as expected! Xiao Hua was overjoyed when he saw the armor protecting his soul. He kept the soul strand and opened his eyes. We're almost there, Xiao Hua said in his heart as he released his Buddhist awareness. After another cup of tea, Xiao Hua instructed. Senior Brother Jin, stop the flying boat. Okay. Jin Minghui stopped the flying boat and listened to Xiao Hua's instructions. Everyone, look over there. Xiao Hua sighed and pointed to the right side of the flying boat. It was a valley between the mountains. Oh? Cui Hongxun and the others were puzzled. When they stood up and looked down, their faces were filled with shock. Especially Dui Ling, Jinhua, and the other Qi refinement disciples, their eyes flashed with panic and anger. That's right, in the valley, on top of the pure white snow, there were dozens of Dao sect cultivators' corpses, staining the pure white snow with blood. These corpses were in a mess too horrible to look at. In particular, there were several female cultivators, all naked. Their Taoist robes had long been torn into countless pieces. Senior Sister Dui, take Ming Mao and Dui Ling and bury the corpses of the female disciples, Xiao Hua ordered with his eyes closed. Yes. Dui Qiming suppressed the grief in her heart and waved her hand, taking Ming Mao and Dui Ling with her. After a long while, the three female cultivators flew back with tears in their eyes. Their eyes were filled with anger. Sai, this is the great battle of Dao cultivators. Anything can happen. Xiao Hua sighed slightly. Previously, I only wanted to avoid these sword cultivators, but I forgot about their brutality. They fed their swords with their bodies. Although they were upright, they were also ruthless. Killing is the best way to deal with each other's enmity. Only now did everyone know why Xiao Hua had his eyes on the 30 or so swordsmen who drew their swords and wanted to kill them all. It turned out that he had already seen the tragic situation here. Without waiting for Xiao Hua's order, Cui Hongxun flicked his sleeves and said, Su Qing, you and the others go and clean up the other corpses. Yes. Su Qing and the others gritted their teeth and flew out, gathering the remaining corpses and burying them. What about the tokens and other items of those disciples? When Su Qing and the others returned, Dui Qiming clapped his hands and took out the token that was scattered on the snow and casually thrown away by the sword cultivator. Leave it all to me. Cui Hongxun sighed and said, They should be the three teams from Cool Breeze Valley, Mo Sang Mountain and Thousand Leaf Ridge. I wonder if they have the same mission as us. It's also a merit for us to bring the tokens back to Sky Patrol City. Where are their storage pouches? Xiao Hua asked in grief and indignation. Cui Hongxun shook his head. That's a different story. It belongs to whoever takes it. And Xiao Hua clapped his hands and took out a few more tokens. There were even 3 captain tokens. Cui Hongxun also dejectedly put them away. As the flying boat took off again, everyone was silent. Obviously, their previous joy was defeated by the cruelty of reality, and Xiao Hua no longer pointed out the direction of the flying boat. Another few days passed. These few days were not easy. Just like the frequency of Xiaohua's reminders, they would encounter more or less sword cultivators every half a day. However, with Xiaohua, a cultivator who concealed his cultivation and still had the strength of an early-stage golden core cultivator, the first team of the Imperial Thunder Sect was not in danger at all. Most of the time, Xiaohua did not even make a move and only let them fight on their own. Blood and hatred were often the driving force for cultivation advancement. In just a few days, the 9 people's cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds, and even in terms of cooperation, they had become more perfect. Seeing this, Xiaohua could not help but sigh. It's not unreasonable for sword cultivators to start a war. After fighting for several years, not only will their swordsmanship improve greatly, but their realm will also definitely break through. Compared to experience, it's really effective. On this day, on the flying boat, Dui Ling, Baisugu, and Jinhua had sword wounds on their arms that had not yet healed. They were asking Dui Qiming and Qiu Su about their doubts about cultivation when they heard Xiaohua, who had been silent all this time, say, "Senior brother Minghui, there's another strange enemy on the right in front. Moreover, it seems to be a fellow Taoist from the Tao sect. Stop in the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, we'll fly over." Yes. Jin Minghui did not hesitate to change the direction of the flying boat and fly over. Xiaohua closed his eyes again. After the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, Jin Minghui stopped the flying boat as instructed. Xiaohua put away the flying boat, and everyone flew forward under Cui Hongshan's lead. "Quick!" Xiaohua urged. He changed his habit of always flying at the back and took the lead to fly forward. Everyone knew that the situation was urgent, and they all urged their magic power to follow behind Xiaohua. However, before they could fly too far, Xiaohua's figure had already flown far away, gradually disappearing from their sight. Seeing this, Cui Hongshan could not help but sigh in his heart. In his mind, he actually recalled the helpless exhortation from earlier on Sky Thunder Peak. Who's protecting who? I. But. Quick! Cui Hongshan waved his hand and said, "There must be sword cultivators fighting fiercely with our Tao sect disciples in front. We can't fall behind." However, when Cui Hongshan rushed to the scene, Xiaohua was not in their field of vision. Even when Cui Hongshan released his divine sense, he could not find any trace of Xiaohua. The scene was extremely dangerous. There were 10 disciples, as many as the first team of the Imperial Thunder Sect, but they were wearing the Tai Ching sect's uniform. They were surrounded by more than 10 strange swordsmen. These swordsmen were divided into 2 groups. One group was abnormally tall, and their bodies emitted a strange brilliance. That brilliance was linked to the magic tools they held in midair. The other group only had 3 swordsmen. These 3 swordsmen were even more strange. They had their backs to Cui Hongshan and the others, so Cui Hongshan and the others could not see their faces clearly. However, their flight was very strange. When they flew, their hands were spread open like wings. They did not use magic tools or magic treasures, and only charged at the Tai Ching sect disciples. Every time they flew, the Tai Ching sect disciples' magic tools would be knocked away, forcing them to retreat quickly. "Fellow Taoists from the Imperial Thunder Sect, come and help me!" Before Cui Hongshan could take a closer look, a Tai Ching sect disciple at the peak of the early stage of foundation establishment said happily, "Fellow Taoists, don't worry. We'll come over right now." Cui Hongshan responded and quickly analyzed the situation. He then directed Jin Minghui, Dui Qiming, and the others to fly to different Tai Ching sect disciples to help. "Jie!" A scream that caused the blood and qi of all the cultivators present to surge rang out. The strange swordsmen with their backs to Cui Hongshan and the others turned around. Although Cui Hongshan and the others were prepared, their hearts still trembled and they were greatly shocked. -8. Chapter 2306. The bodies of these 3 swordsmen were extremely thin and shriveled. Moreover, their skeleton-like faces were extremely prominent. Their mouths and noses were pointed forward, like the beaks of birds. Their eyes were withered and yellow, and their gazes were sharp and ferocious when they looked back. Bird cultivator! Chui Hongshan and the others immediately understood that this was the bird cultivator they had been warned to be careful of several times in the encampment of the Imperial Thunder Sect in Sky Patrol City. Whoosh! The bird cultivator who was attacking the early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator clapped his hands. Chui Hongshan saw that his hands under his Taoist robe were extremely thin and long, and they actually emitted a sharp cold light. Faintly, some yellow feathers were emitted from his Taoist robe. As the bird cultivator waved his hands, a powerful wave of air surged out. The bird cultivator's body flew out in a strange manner, drawing an arc in the air as he charged into Chui Hongshan's defensive range. Go! Chui Hongshan had already taken out his Thunder Pearl. Following the activation of Chui Hongshan's Dharma power, he attacked in front of the bird cultivator. However, how could the Thunder Pearl compare to the bird cultivator's agility? When one of the Thunder Pearls flew in front of the bird cultivator only waved his left hand slightly. His entire body was like a bat flying sideways. The Thunder Pearl slid down the bird cultivator's back, and the bird cultivator's hand was already in front of Chui Hongshan's forehead. Hiss! This was the second time Chui Hongshan had seen such fast flying. He was shocked, and at the same time, he sucked in a breath of cold air. All the hair on his body stood on end. He waved his hands naturally, and almost reflexively, he cast a defensive spell. However, how could such a hurried spell block the bird cultivator's fierce attack? Before the spiritual chi of heaven and earth could condense, it was shattered by the bird cultivator. Chui Hongshan could almost hear the sound of the wind piercing the air between the bird cultivator's claws. The sharp cold light was reflected in Chui Hongshan's eyes. The situation was too urgent. Naturally, the early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator who was originally entangled by the bird cultivator also hurriedly activated the green ring-shaped magic weapon to smash the bird cultivator's back. However, it was clear that the bird cultivator didn't care about the green hoop at all. He didn't defend himself at all, and Chui Hongshan, who was willing to be injured in order to help, died under his claws. Something strange happened. Just as Chui Hongshan was about to hurriedly throw out the other two Thunder Pearls, the bird cultivator suddenly screamed. His Taoist robe straightened, as if the feathers under his Taoist robe were standing up. His two sharp claws didn't care about hurting Chui Hongshan. Instead, he turned around to protect his head. His orange eyes flashed with panic. Fight! When Chui Hongshan saw this, the other two lightning beads flew out and took the opportunity to collide with each other. A flash of lightning instantly appeared, and the thumb-sized lightning struck the beast cultivator. Crackle! Blue lightning instantly enveloped the bird cultivator. At the same time, the Tai Ching sect cultivator's green ring also struck down. Pooh! A dull sound rang out, and an earthy yellow light appeared on the bird cultivator's back. The bird cultivator was instantly knocked down by several dozen feet. However, a yellow light flashed across the bird cultivator's face. He spread his wings and was about to fly again. This bird cultivator is too powerful, right? Chui Hongshan was very surprised. He was confident that he wouldn't be able to take a hit from the green ring, let alone the lightning from the Thunder Pearl. Fight! At this moment, Chiu Su, who was also in the early stage of Foundation establishment, finally threw out his own magic tool, Thunder Net. However, the timing of Chiu Su's Thunder Net was just right. It landed on the bird cultivator's body when he spread his wings, trapping the bird cultivator in an instant. Good! The Tai Ching sect cultivator almost clapped his hands and hurriedly circulated all the magic power in his body. The green ring flashed with an intense green light and suddenly enlarged, producing an extremely strong confining force that enveloped the bird cultivator. Then, it trapped the bird cultivator from top to bottom. Following that, it rapidly shrank, tightly and firmly trapped the bird cultivator. Dui Ling! Chui Hongshan was overjoyed when he saw this. He hurriedly called out to Dui Ling, who had a thunder seal in her hand, wanting her to use her thunder seal to attack. However, Dui Ling was a few dozen feet away, urging her thunder seal to attack the magic tool with the wavering blue light. How could she have the time to help them? Watch this, Xiao! Right at this moment, Xiao Hua's voice resounded. Cui Hongshan turned around and saw Xiao Hua leisurely flying over from the direction they came from. The cloud suppression seal, which hadn't appeared for a long time, was already in the air. Ah! Xiao! Xiao Hua! The Tai Ching sect cultivator saw this and his face showed a pleasantly surprised expression. He even called out Xiao Hua's name. He, fellow Taoist we meet again, Xiao Hua said with a smile. This Tai Ching sect cultivator was none other than He Fan Yuan, who was forced to foundation establishment by Xiao Hua during the Feather Immortal Assembly. Junior brother Xiao, quickly come and help me. Seeing that Xiao Hua's cloud suppression seal was actually 10 feet in size and overflowing with an earthen yellow brilliance, as well as the heaven and earth spiritual energy that had formed a jade necklace, He Fan Yuan shouted in joy. Go! Xiao Hua chanted an incantation and pointed his finger. The cloud-suppressing seal rumbled with a deafening sound as it smashed towards the bird cultivator. The cloud suppression seal flew dozens of feet above the bird cultivator's head, and that powerful sealing force trapped the bird cultivator. The bird cultivator was already unable to break free from the green rings and lightning net, and now he couldn't move at all. His entire body was flattened as if it was flat. Boom! The cloud suppression seal landed and smashed the bird cultivator into the ground without any suspense. When the cloud suppression seal was pulled out again, 2 lumps of mangled flesh and blood could be seen on the sunken ground. On top of it was a small lump of colorful feathers. It was the corpse of a spirit bird, and below it was an ordinary human corpse. Great! He Fan Yuan said in joy. To think that junior brother Zhao's treasure would have such power now, I am truly envious. Fellow Taoist you must be joking. Xiao Hua pointed his finger, and the cloud suppression seal flew into the air and shrunk slightly, protecting him. He smiled. This treasure's power is not bad, but its speed is too slow. If this bird cultivator wasn't trapped by fellow Taoist I wouldn't have been able to kill him with the cloud suppression seal. With every advantage, there is always a disadvantage. Why is junior brother Xiao so obsessed with perfection? He Fan Yuan's divine sense swept over the other disciples, and he knew that with the support of the Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples, he had completely reversed the previous situation, so he stopped and said to Xiao Hua with a smile. Moreover, this magic treasure seems to have been repaired by junior brother Xiao, and its power is even more powerful. Is there anything junior brother Xiao is not satisfied with? Saying this, He Fan Yuan seemed to have thought of something, and blinked. However, according to what I know, Chan Bai Sek seems to have an even more famous overturned sea seal than this cloud suppression seal. Its power is even greater, and its flying speed is even faster. It fits junior brother Zhao's expectations. Oh? Overturned sea seal? Xiao Hua shook his head. I don't seem to have heard of it. Yes, it has been a long time since I last saw it. I heard it was lost, but Chan Bai Sek doesn't admit it. However, we are all sects of Ming country. How can we not know? Even I know, how can others not know? Chan Bai sect is only deceiving themselves. He Fan Yuan explained, but soon after, he felt that it was inappropriate, and hurriedly said, Oh, junior brother Xiao, I did not mean to mock you, you should know. Ha! No worries. Xiao Hua waved his hand. Senior brother you should quickly look at the other disciples. The current situation is not that easy to deal with. Yes, I understand. He Fan Yuan cupped his fists. Junior brother Xiao, please lend me a hand. This artifact cultivator and bird cultivator are quite strange. They are different from the records in the sect. If not for the cloud suppression seal and lightning seal, these treasures, it would not be easy to kill them. I understand. Xiao Hua glanced at Cui Hongshan, who had already left him and joined another group, and nodded. Dui Qiming was facing an artifact cultivator. That artifact cultivator's body was emitting an orange light, and was connected to a huge fireball in the air. That fireball's brilliance was extremely dazzling, and outside of the brilliance, there was a foot-long flame burning fiercely. This artifact cultivator's original opponent was a Tai Ching sect disciple who was wielding a sharp hook artifact. That sharp hook was an extremely fierce artifact, but under the attack of the fire bead, there was a faint red flame burning on it, and the hook was actually somewhat distorted. Even that Tai Ching sect disciple felt an indescribable anxiety in his heart. Dui Chimeng took out the lightning bottle, and from the bottle's mouth, purple lightning poured down like rain, instantly suppressing the destruction of the fire bead. Not only was the flame restrained by the orange brilliance, but the light around the artifact cultivator's body also dimmed by more than 40%. The artifact cultivator's entire body was connected to the artifact. Ga. The fire bead artifact cultivator's eyes were different from the bird cultivator's. They were scarlet red like a pillar of fire in the air, and the cold laughter coming from his mouth also had the feeling of friction between artifacts. As the fire pearl cultivator sneered, a pillar of fire appeared from his body. With a wang sound, the pillar of fire rushed toward the fire pearl in the air. Woo-woo, the fire bead made a woo-woo sound inside the pillar of fire, and its color gradually changed from orange to green. What made Dui Chimeng and the Tai Ching sect disciple feel even more uneasy was that along with the change in color, the shape of the fire bead also changed. It actually began to gradually expand, and then it became illusory. Attack! Dui Chimeng didn't dare to hesitate any longer and once again used her magic power. A layer of lightning fell down and covered the fire bead. Similarly, the Tai Ching sect disciple used his magic power, and the sharp hook drew a snow-white light in the air and directly fell into the pillar of fire. GG! An ear-piercing cry came from the fire bead, and within the lightning, the pillar of fire evolved into a fire bird. It flapped its wings extremely vividly, and dozens of fire arrows shot out from the fire bird's wings, riddling the pillar of lightning with thousands of holes. Moreover, at the same time the fire bird flapped its wings, its green beak rapidly pecked at the hook. Ah! With a scream, the Tai Ching sect disciple's face was already pale. He formed a hand seal, and the hook flew back from the fire bird's beak, and a pinky-sized hole appeared on the hook. -8. Chapter 2307. Seeing that the equipment cultivator was so powerful, Dui Chimeng's heart trembled. She once again circulated her magic power, but this time, she changed her hand seal. Absorb! Dui Chimeng shouted, and another lightning net was thrown down. The lightning net flowed within, and the lightning bottle produced a strong suction force. The flames around the fire bird were sucked up and slowly entered the bottle. The fire pearl equipment cultivator was slightly stunned. At this time, the fire pillars around him were gradually extinguished, leaving only an orange flame connected to the fire bird. The suction force of the lightning bottle was quite strong, and the fire between the equipment cultivator and the fire bird was showing signs of being stirred up. The fire pearl equipment cultivator roared again, and a whirlwind appeared around him, as if he was circulating the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. At this time, 4 lightning pearls fell from the sky, landing in front of and behind him. They were Cui Hongshan's 4 lightning pearls. The 4 lightning pearls flew in front of and behind the equipment cultivator, rapidly colliding with each other. 2 streaks of lightning appeared at the equipment cultivator's face and the back of his head at the same time. The fire pearl equipment cultivator clearly did not care. He raised a hand that was flickering with flames, blocking his face. As for the lightning behind his head, he simply ignored it. Kacha! The lightning in front of his face was blocked by the equipment cultivator. However, the equipment cultivator had clearly underestimated the lightning from the lightning pearls. This lightning was much stronger than the lightning from Dui Chimeng's lightning bottle. This lightning actually passed through the gap between the equipment cultivator's fingers and hit the front of his face. Just this lightning alone was naturally only able to injure one of the equipment cultivator's hands. It was extremely difficult for it to injure his vitals. However, at this time, the lightning behind the equipment cultivator's head also struck. Between these 2 lightning bolts, a faint purple lightning bolt suddenly appeared. This lightning was extremely thin, almost as thin as a strand of hair. However, its power was extremely strong, and it directly pierced through the equipment cultivator's head. A crack that was invisible to the naked eye appeared between the weapon cultivator's eyebrows. GG. At this time, the fire bird also let out a miserable cry, and a similar crack appeared on its forehead. Great! Dui Qimeng was delighted and took the opportunity to circulate her magic power, increasing the suction force by 30%. The firebird finally couldn't hold on any longer. With a wail, it fell into the lightning bottle. Dui Qimeng didn't hesitate to summon the lightning bottle back to her when she saw the firebird fall into the bottle. At this moment, the lightning bottle suddenly expanded, and some red light appeared. Inside the thunder bottle's mouth, a brilliant flame was born. It was precisely the brilliance of the connection between the firebird and the tool cultivator. The thunder bottle actually swayed and was about to fly in the direction of the beast cultivator. Fight! Cui Hongshan scolded again, and the 4 lightning pearls drew 4 strange arcs in the air, and collided with each other again. 2 bolts of lightning were produced once again. Simultaneously, one from the front and one from the back, they struck towards the weapon cultivator. At this moment, the flames on his body had already been extinguished, revealing his normal body. Roar! The weapon cultivator panicked. How would he dare to let the lightning strike him again? He flew towards Dui Qimeng and spat out another stream of Samadhi true fire. Withdraw! Seeing this, Dui Qimeng used her flying technique to avoid the weapon cultivator. At the same time, she used all her strength to activate her magic power. She clapped her hands, completely ignoring the changes in the lightning bottle. She wanted to snatch the lightning bottle from the weapon cultivator and keep it in her storage bag. The lightning pearls were extremely fast. When they collided, lightning flashed. The weapon cultivator was helpless. He could only turn his head and spit out his Samadhi true fire at one of the bolts of lightning, drowning it. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Dui Qimeng suddenly activated her quintessential essence. The lightning bottle disappeared from her hand and was kept in her storage bag. She looked at the weapon cultivator with the fire pearls. As the firebird was kept, the brilliance on his body dimmed, and his eyes were filled with panic. Kachacha! The lightning behind the equipment cultivator struck him. Ah! The weapon cultivator screamed and fell. A thumb-sized wound appeared on his back. Great! Seeing this, Cui Hongshan was overjoyed. He knew that after the weapon cultivator's artifact was taken away, his defense would be greatly reduced. Although his lightning pearls couldn't cause a fist-sized wound, it was still effective. Immediately after, he activated the lightning pearls. That Tai Ching sect disciple could naturally see this. He endured the damage to his artifact, and also activated his hook to help Cui Hongshan. Damn it, this Cui Hongshan actually knows the principle of lightning splitting yin and yang. Under the protection of the cloud-suppressing seal, Xiaohua was able to clearly see what Cui Hongshan was doing. Inside his phoenix celestial body, the male and female lightning beast's inner cores were precisely relying on the yin and yang attributes of the 2 inner cores to produce lightning, and used the lightning attracting technique. Naturally, he was very sensitive to Cui Hongshan's 2 lightning bolts just now. This guy's 2 lightning beast's inner cores are still inside this young master's space. He probably doesn't know, right? However, seeing him like this young master is still unhappy. Let's talk about it when there's a chance in the future. Eldest senior brother used the lightning beast cores to give birth to Xiangjili. Who will this guy and Dui Qimeng give birth to? Right now, it's a sword battle. Don't play any tricks. Xiaohua's gaze was pensive. He looked at Cui Hongshan and then at Dui Qimeng. It was quite thought-provoking. There was no need to talk about the remaining battle groups. With the assistance of the Imperial Thunder Sect disciples, especially with Xiaohua's cloud-suppressing seal, the fate of these tool and beast cultivators had already been decided. In just an hour, 6 tool cultivators and 3 beast cultivators were killed by the combined forces of Tai Ching Sect and Imperial Thunder Sect disciples. Tai Ching Sect was a famous sect in the country of Meng. Its status was higher than Imperial Thunder sect in the country of Shi. However, at this time, the disciples of the two sects had gone through trials and tribulations together. Their bodies had scars left behind by their enemies, and their hands were also stained with the blood of their enemies. Not to mention that the Imperial Thunder sect disciples had come to save Tai Ching sect disciples. Moreover, the leader of this Tai Ching sect team was an old friend of an initial stage Foundation establishment disciple from Imperial Thunder sect. Seeing his remaining 7 disciples take out Tai Ching sect's medicinal pills and affectionately hand them to the Imperial Thunder sect disciples, He Fan Yuan sighed and flew to Cui Hongshan. He bowed and said, I Tai Ching sect's He Fan Yuan thanks fellow Taoists for saving my life. I am Xiao Hua's old acquaintance. I have yet to ask for fellow Taoist's name. After He Fan Yuan escaped danger, he chatted with Xiao Hua for a while. However, at that time, Cui Hongshan had already gone to assist Dui Qimeng, and Xiao Hua avoided talking about Cui Hongshan's matters. Even now, He Fan Yuan still didn't know Cui Hongshan's name. Although Cui Hongshan was somewhat dissatisfied, Xiao Hua's strength was obvious. If it weren't for Xiao Hua, honestly speaking, he might not have dared to accept the challenge. Now that he heard He Fan Yuan's courteous bow and the other party was at the peak of initial stage Foundation establishment, how could he dare to slight him? He hurriedly returned the greeting and said, I, Cui Hongshan, am a disciple of Myriad Thunder Valley with Xiao Hua. I am not talented, but I am the leader of my Imperial Thunder sect's first team. This is also a coincidence. I just happened to pass by this place. It seems we are fated to meet fellow Taoist He. -8. Chapter 2308. Indeed, indeed! He Fan Yuan glanced at Xiao Hua and smiled. Back then, I met Dao friend Xiao Hua at the Feather Immortal Assembly. To think that in the Sword Path battle and patrol Heaven City, I was saved by Lightning Imperial sect's disciple. And this leader is even Dao friend Zhao's junior brother, its senior brother. Cui Hongshan reminded in a low voice. Senior brother? Oh. He Fan Yuan was slightly dazed as he glanced at Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua acted as if he did not hear him at all. He was slightly surprised. He clearly felt that Xiao Hua's magic power surpassed Cui Hongshan's. Moreover, if Cui Hongshan was Xiao Hua's senior brother, Xiao Hua would have introduced him. Since Xiao Hua did not introduce him, he naturally thought Cui Hongshan was Xiao Hua's junior brother. However, He Fan Yuan only thought for a moment before smiling. In short, I am really fated to meet Imperial Thunder sect. Unfortunately, I still came too late. Cui Hongshan saw several Tai Ching sect disciples cleaning up the corpses on the ground and knew they were Tai Ching sect's disciples who died, so he comforted them. Sai, if you did not come, my Tai Ching sect would have been completely wiped out. He Fan Yuan smiled bitterly before looking into the distance and frowning. Actually, if not for that strange maze cultivator, even if you came to help, I'm afraid. Oh, why do you say that? Jin Minghui and the others took the pills and also came forward to greet He Fan Yuan. After Cui Hongshan finished with them, Jin Minghui asked curiously. Of course, when he asked, he inadvertently glanced at Xiao Hua. It's quite strange. He Fan Yuan was still puzzled. Just before Cui and the rest arrived, about 15 minutes later, a cultivator who was bewitched came. Can you look at the corpses of those 2 artifact cultivators? Is there a sword mark on their foreheads? Saying so, He Fan Yuan pointed in the distance. There were 2 corpses that were a head taller than the 2 artifact cultivators that Cui Hongshan and the others dealt with. Jin Minghui's divine sense swept over them and his eyes flashed with shock as he nodded. That's right. The skin and bones of these artifact cultivators are extremely hard, even magic treasures cannot penetrate them. Sword marks? Could it be the work of a sword cultivator? Sword cultivator? How is that possible? He Fan Yuan laughed. If a sword cultivator appeared here, how could we still be alive? It was impossible for a sword cultivator to kill a weapon cultivator. This is probably the work of a senior from the Changbai sect, right? Senior He, what is going on? Please explain clearly. Dui Ling was greatly surprised and hurriedly asked. These two artifact cultivators are the most powerful of the dozen or so, He Fan Yuan said with lingering fear on his face. When my clavicle hit them, it was no different from hitting a magic treasure, it could not injure them at all. And their magical weapons are even more powerful. They should have the attack power of the peak of the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. We just fought with them, and 3 of our disciples were killed by these 2 weapon cultivators. I don't dare to let them fight with the other disciples, so I can only face them myself. Just as I was about to take out my clavicle, the artifact cultivator's magic treasure sent my clavicle flying. It looked like I was about to die at the hands of that artifact cultivator. A green and red sword light appeared in front of the artifact cultivator's eyes. I saw it very clearly. That weapon cultivator only lasted for 2 rounds, and was not a match for that fast and sharp flying sword at all. In the 3rd round, the flying sword pierced through the space between his eyebrows and he fell to the ground. Only now did that Senior Miho's figure appear 100 feet away. He Fan Yuan said with envy. Next, that green and red flying sword did not stop at all. It flew towards another extremely powerful artifact cultivator. That artifact cultivator was even more powerful than before. His entire body was covered in green light, and was as hard as his magic treasure. Moreover, this artifact cultivator's flying speed was also extremely fast. I'm afraid it was even faster than Imperial Thundersect's disciples. Either way, his magic tool couldn't even touch a single hair on his body. But no matter how powerful this artifact cultivator was, he was no match for the Changbai Sect Senior. In just 5 rounds, really, just 5 to 6 rounds, that green and red flying sword strangely pierced through the back of the artifact cultivator's head. And that artifact cultivator's magic treasure did not even touch that senior's. But that senior is also strange. He only killed these 2 artifact cultivators and did not wait for my thanks. He did not even care about our lives and flew away in another direction. He Fan Yuan laughed. I was still puzzled earlier, but now I know. That senior must have seen Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples and knew that we could kill the artifact cultivator and beast cultivator. Thus, he killed the leader and left the rest of the swordsmen for us. Green and red flying sword? Cui Hongshan and the others were shocked as they thought to themselves. Isn't it a golden brilliance? What? Have you seen this Changbai Sect Senior before? He Fan Yuan observed their expressions and asked curiously. No, we don't have that fortune. How could we see this Changbai Sect Senior? Cui Hongshan emphasized the words Changbai Sect. That's true. If any senior doesn't want us to know his identity, we naturally won't know. He Fan Yuan nodded and bowed towards another direction. Junior He Fan Yuan, Senior came in a hurry and did not thank me. Now, Junior thanks Senior for saving our lives. Cui Hongshan and the rest had strange expressions as they looked at He Fan Yuan's bow. They could not understand Xiaohua at all. After He Fan Yuan finished bowing, Tai Ching Sect's disciples also cleaned up the corpses of the dead disciples and took out the artifact cultivator and beast cultivator's storage bags. Dao Friend Shui, you came to help us. This storage bag should be taken by you, right? He Fan Yuan hesitated for a moment before waving his hand generously. Cui Hongshan smiled and waved his hand. Even though we came to help, Tai Ching Sect's Dao Friend also contributed greatly and lost many of our fellow disciples. How can we take it? Let's split it evenly? Saying so, Cui Hongshan looked around and smiled. Why are there only 7 or 8 storage bags? 2 seem to be missing? Oh, those 2 storage bags were taken by Changbai Sect Seniors. He Fan Yuan smiled. If they don't take it, I will feel even more uneasy. That's good. Cui Hongshan also smiled. Splitting it like this will make us feel at ease. Next, Tai Ching Sect's disciples divided the items in the storage bags evenly and gave them to Jin Mingwei, who gave them to everyone else. After the items were distributed, Cui Hongshan cupped his fists. Dao Friend we will have to part ways. I will take my leave. He Fan Yuan also cupped his fists and looked at Xiaohua, saying, After this mission is completed, I will go to Imperial Thunder Sex Station to find you and junior brother Xiao. All right. Tai Ching Sex disciples and Imperial Thunder Sex disciples cupped their fists and smiled, flying up at the same time. However, after flying for a few meters, they were surprised. The two groups were flying in the same direction. Cui Hongshan looked at He Fan Yuan. The two had bitter smiles on their faces. After thinking for a while, Cui Hongshan smiled. Dao friend He, are you going to Golden Spring Mountain? Ha ha ha, yes, yes. He Fan Yuan also laughed loudly. This is too much of a coincidence. Let's go together. The disciples of the two sects were also happy. They flew up in their respective groups. He Fan Yuan chatted with Cui Hongshan for a while in front. When he saw Xiao Hua flying leisurely at the back, he stopped and waited for Xiao Hua to come closer. Junior brother Xiao! Long time no see, your cultivation is also out of my expectations. He Fan Yuan smiled. I knew that junior brother Xiao would be able to reach foundation establishments smoothly. Your cultivation far surpasses mine. Hee, it's nothing. Xiao Hua smiled. As long as I cultivate diligently, heaven will take care of me. Yes, yes. He Fan Yuan smiled apologetically. I am really lucky. Every time I meet junior brother Xiao, good things happen. Last time. Senior brother I have already said it at Feather Immortal Assembly, it was all your own hard work. Xiao Hua naturally knew what He Fan Yuan wanted to say. He quickly stopped him. Yes, yes. He Fan Yuan nodded repeatedly, but after thinking for a while, hesitation appeared on his face. He transmitted. Junior brother Xiao, actually, I have something to tell you. Speak. Xiao Hua saw his transmission and knew it was not a small matter. He nodded. This matter concerns junior brother and my sect. If I did not participate in this sword path battle, I might not be able to explain it to junior brother Xiao. But since I met junior brother Xiao, and junior brother Xiao helped me again, I feel that I should explain it to junior brother Xiao. What is it? Is it about Feather Immortal Assembly? Xiao Hua's heart shook. He raised his eyebrows and asked. That's right. He Fan Yuan nodded. He looked at the Tai Ching sect disciples in front of him and transmitted. Junior brother Xiao should know that Feather Immortal Assembly's illusion formation can record images, the situation of my foundation establishment inside the illusion formation. The sect knows about it. Moreover, the sect master even summoned me and asked me in detail. Is that so? Xiao Hua frowned. He did not deny it. Moreover, I heard, the sect master even found a few disciples with great strength and tried, but they did not succeed. He Fan Yuan could not speak too directly. He hinted vaguely. Thank you. Xiao Hua nodded. This matter is strange. It has nothing to do with me, but it seems that some disciples also established foundation when they fought junior brother Xiao, right? He Fan Yuan thought for a while and said. Yes. Xiao Hua had a bitter smile on his face. He shrugged. Actually, I was already at the peak of Qi refinement stage 12. Isn't it normal for there to be a few foundation establishment disciples? At that time, my cultivation level was low. I could only bully others with great strength. Your sect master had to be so far-fetched. I had no choice. However, it has been so long, I did not encounter anything. I am sure your sect master has thought it through, right? Of course, this Xiao still has to thank senior martial brother He. -8. Chapter 2309. Xiao Hua said it was fine, but his heart was thumping as he became vigilant. Although this wasn't a special secret of his, if it were to fall into the eyes of someone with ulterior motives, especially the masters of sects like the Tai Ching sect, it would definitely be more dangerous than secrets, like the Buddhist sect's cultivation level and the dragonization art. No need to thank me. He Fan Yuan cupped his fists. I hope that by going to Jin Quan Mountain with junior brother Xiao, I will be able to return safely. I think so. Xiao Hua thought inwardly and answered casually. These weapon cultivators and sword cultivators are only SOSO, senior brother He's luck is so good, of course you will be fine. Sigh, don't talk about weapon cultivators and beast cultivators. Hearing this, He Fan Yuan smiled bitterly. Before coming to patrol Heaven City, I searched the sex records to study the weakness of weapon cultivators, sword cultivators, and beast cultivators. However, I did not find the weakness. Instead, I found that sword cultivators are better, but weapon cultivators and beast cultivators are different from the records in the sect. Oh? What's the difference? Xiaohua was surprised. He did not have time to look at Imperial Thunder Sect's records, so he did not know what He Fan Yuan was talking about. Junior brother Xiao, you didn't notice? He Fan Yuan looked at Xiaohua. That beast cultivator is strange. Xiaohua smiled bitterly and shrugged. I smashed it to death. I really did not notice. Junior brother Xiao, you really have nothing to worry about. He Fan Yuan was speechless. Didn't you see that beast cultivators actually refine spirit beasts into their bodies? Is that so? What's so strange about it? Isn't that how beast cultivators do it? Xiaohua asked. The ignorant are fearless. He Fan Yuan sighed and thought for a while before asking. Do you know Shi Country's spirit husbandry sect? I do. Xiaohua nodded. They rear spirit beasts and use them for battle, of course I know. That's good. He Fan Yuan nodded. Actually, in Tai Chin sect's records, beast cultivators are similar to spirit husbandry sect, but beast cultivators are stronger, and their spirit beasts are of higher grade. Moreover, beast cultivators are the same as sword cultivators. They can place their primordial spirits in spiritual beasts and control them more flexibly. Ah? Only now did Xiaohua understand He Fan Yuan's words and shouted in shock. Isn't that so? The beast cultivators I saw today had the bodies of humans, but their heads were the heads of spirit beasts. Exactly. He Fan Yuan nodded solemnly. Beast cultivators can actually refine spirit beasts into their bodies. This is a symbiosis with spirit beasts. Not only do they have the strength of cultivators, they also have the innate abilities of spirit beasts. This is something that our Dao sect cultivators cannot compare to. That tool cultivator, is he all right? Xiaohua probed. Not necessarily. He Fan Yuan shook his head again. Weapon cultivators are the same as sword cultivators. They have the cultivation path of man and sword as one. But that's only possible if you reach the transformation stage, which is the same as my Dao sect's nascent soul stage cultivators. Those weapon cultivators just now were obviously only at the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage, but they were actually able to connect their bodies with magic treasures. They were only one step away from transforming into a weapon. This is simply inconceivable. And what I don't understand the most is that they seem to have a problem with their brains. What do you mean? Xiaohua asked again. Let's not talk about that Chang Bai-sec Senior. He escaped after killing 2 weapon cultivators. It is normal that these weapon cultivators and beast cultivators did not escape. He Fan Yuan explained again. But when Dao Friend Xiao and the other Imperial Thunder Sect disciples came, they were clearly not our match and should have escaped. But they simply did not run, they stubbornly defended until we killed them one by one. Don't you think this is strange? That is true. Xiaohua really did not think so much. Only when He Fan Yuan mentioned it did he realize that these were indeed some inexplicable details. Maybe they have a mission. They don't dare to leave, Xiaohua said softly. What mission can there be in such a remote place? He Fan Yuan shook his head. Even if there is a mission, they should escape first. Maybe they want to intercept us, Xiaohua said casually. That is impossible? He Fan Yuan smiled. When we teleported out of Patrol Heaven City, we were very secretive and quickly flew towards Quanjin Mountain. Even if our 2 teams have the same mission, we do not know each other. How could they know? Senior brother, his words make sense. Xiaohua nodded and looked ahead. We should tell Dao Friend Chui about this. You are the leaders of the 2 teams after all. Dao Friend Chui? He Fan Yuan was surprised. You don't call him senior brother? This is my Myriad Thunder Valley's family matter. Dao Friend, he should not interfere. Xiaohua waved his hand. All right. He Fan Yuan smiled. No matter what, I will always side with junior brother Xiao, don't worry about this. Just based on what Dao friend he said earlier, I will remember this favor. Xiaohua smiled and nodded, sending He Fan Yuan off with his gaze. This is troublesome. Although Xiaohua did not seem to care, he was muttering in his heart. How could he not care about the concern of Tai Ching sect's master? That was a sect that was even more powerful than the Imperial Thunder sect. It was estimated that because the Tai Ching sect was in Ming country and the Imperial Thunder sect was in Shi country, and Xiaohua had been appearing and disappearing unpredictably all these years, the disciples of the Tai Ching sect didn't receive any news about Xiaohua, so they didn't directly look for him. It was hard to say who would win in this sword path battle. Sai, keep a low profile. Xiaohua was gloomy. I just want to cultivate peacefully. I already gave the credit to some Changbai sect senior, how can I retreat? However, He Fan Yuan's words are really strange. If the artifact cultivator and beast cultivator did not have some mission, then they might have been affected by the artifact or spirit beast, losing the vigilance, and thinking that cultivators should have. Not to mention Xiaohua's speculation about whether the artifact cultivator and beast cultivator had some mission. Far away in the west of Shi country, at the border with Huan country, an emerald green sword light was flying through the sky in the biting cold wind. On that sword light was a person wearing a long green robe. This swordsman's hair was white, his cheekbones were bulging, and there were no wrinkles on his pale yellow face. As the sword light flickered, the swordsman's body would sway slightly. That sword intent pierced into the air, piercing through the cold wind. Not to mention the snowflakes that were faintly floating in the air, they could not even get close to him. As the swordsman's body swayed, the sword light would transform from time to time, and a green sword would appear on that sword light. This swordsman was actually an illusory sword cultivator. Just as the illusory swordsman flew past a towering cliff, the sword intent cut through a baby fist-sized icicle on the cliff. That icicle fell down the cliff, and no sound could be heard for a long time. From the front of the swordsman, a fiery red brilliance quickly chased after him. Whose flying sword book is it? That swordsman frowned slightly, his body stopping in the air. That green sword phantom immediately withdrew into his body, and with a wave of his hand, a finger-long flying sword landed in his hand. When the swordsman finished reading the contents of the flying sword, his expression changed greatly, and he shouted with a stern voice. Idiot! You ruined my plan! 100 deaths are not worth regretting! As he spoke, sword light appeared in his hand, and that flying sword was actually torn apart by the sword light in the swordsman's hand. Like a piece of white paper, it turned into fragments and fell from the sky. This makes this sword. The swordsman gritted his teeth and hesitated, as if he wanted to turn back. However, the swordsman stood in the air for a long time, and in the end, he flew up again and flew forward. But this time, there was no sword light like before, only a green figure. The swordsman flew for more than half a day and arrived in front of a towering ice mountain. The ice mountain was extremely high, piercing straight into the gloomy sky, as if it was going to pierce the sky. This ice mountain was extremely wide, stretching for more than 10 miles. The swordsman flew to the ice mountain and did not stop. Instead, he flew around the ice mountain, and in the time it took to eat a meal, a crack that was several feet wide appeared in the ice. The swordsman hesitated for a moment, and then rushed into the crack. The crack was between the ice mountain, and a huge whirlwind was generated from the crack, as if it could blow the swordsman away in an instant. However, the sword light around the swordsman's body flashed, and a green treasure sword appeared. One wank! A burst of sound was heard, and the sword light slashed down, splitting the whirlwind. In an instant, there was a moment of silence. And in this moment of silence, the sword light flashed, and the swordsman rushed into the crack. Out of the crack, the swordsman's eyes lit up, and a huge lake appeared in front of him. The surface of the lake was extremely large and emerald green. Icy mountains surrounded the surface of the huge lake, blocking the surrounding cold wind. Moreover, several pale white rays of sunlight shot out from the dark clouds in the sky, like huge light swords, piercing into the lake in the valley. Under the sunlight, the lake not only became more green, but there was not even the slightest sound of wind. There were no ripples on the surface of the lake, and it was really like a huge gem. The swordsman was not shocked by the strange scene in front of him, as if he was already used to it. He flew past the corner of Lake Shui, and landed on one of the protrusions on the stone wall, and stood there quietly. On the left side of the stone wall he was standing on, not only were there rare spirit grasses growing everywhere, even under the stone wall, near Lake Shui, there were spirit grasses that were the size of a fist and looked like lotus flowers that were full of vitality. The lotus-like spirit fruits emitted a delicate fragrance, and even if the swordsman stood high up, he could still faintly smell it. However, the swordsman was distracted, and did not pay attention to it. Looking at the surroundings of Lake Shui, on the stone wall, there were dozens of protrusions. And at this time, on these protrusions, there were many different swordsmen. Among these swordsmen, most of them were similar to the swordsman who just came. They stood there quietly, with their eyes slightly closed, and their entire bodies seemed to be in a trance. Each one of them was like an unsheathed sword, and the shape of the sword was faintly discernible. These swordsmen were actually at the illusory sword realm. -8. Chapter 23:10. As for the remaining cultivators, they were naturally beast cultivators and weapon cultivators. Not to mention the crouching tiger and coiling dragon of the beast cultivators, the shadows of the strange spirit beasts would appear from time to time. Even the artifact cultivators would occasionally release the light of the artifact cultivators. All of this indicated that these deviant cultivators also had the cultivation of the sword cultivator's illusory sword. An hour passed by quickly, and another dozen or so swordsmen arrived on their swords and stopped on the stone wall. Clank! A loud sound like a sharp sword rang out. A green sword ray flew out from the wall opposite of the green-clothed swordsman, and landed on Lake Shui like a meteor. The sword energy on the sword ray was like frost, and layers of ice began to form on the surface of Lake Shui. One wank! On the stone wall surrounding Lake Shui, all the swordsmen released their sword intent, creating a fierce hurricane. Every swordsman's body let out a sword cry. "Welcome, fellow swordsmen!" The emerald green sword light receded, revealing a woman in emerald green sword attire. The woman's face was extremely cold, and there was a murderous aura between her eyebrows. Although she called out to everyone, there was not much warmth in her eyes. Zung zung zung! Dozens of sword lights that were not inferior to the female swordsman's flew out from the stone walls and landed on the surface of Lake Shui. Although the swordsmen appeared to be standing in a disorderly manner, they were clearly positioned from top to bottom and left to right. It was obvious that this was a very profound sword formation. "I am Black Phoenix Sword Sex Lu Ruachang. Greetings, fellow swordsmen!" The female swordsman cupped her fists and bowed towards the crowd. "Greetings, LVGNU." The swordsmen also cupped their fists in return. Lu Ruachang straightened up and said coldly, "The sword Dao war has been going on for more than a year. Our sword cultivators have suffered great losses. On the other hand, the Dao sect cultivators did not suffer many losses either. The Dao sect has the advantage in numbers. If we sword cultivators are unable to find a way to win and obtain victory in a short period of time, we will definitely be forced to retreat in the end." "LVGNU, that's easy for you to say. Do you have a way to win?" A tall, middle-aged sword cultivator dressed in red swordsman attire coldly replied. "We sword cultivators have fought countless battles with the Dao sect. We've always had the upper hand in the beginning. Later on, we were gradually pushed back. In the end, we were forced to retreat to the sword realm. There were even many great battles where we were forced to retreat at the beginning. Could it be that my sword cultivator seniors aren't as smart as you? Hee, so it's Qin Jian of the Void Heaven Sword School." A rare smile appeared on Lu Ruachang's face. "Swordsman Qin, you're now famous in the Dao sect. They've searched the entire border between the state of Shi and the Sword region to find you. I heard that your bounty has risen to an extremely high level. Haha, this Qin is untalented. Qin Jian laughed coldly. I, Qin, do not know how to win. I only want to kill as many cultivators as possible. Once I kill them one by one, wouldn't the cultivators retreat? If it's as sword friend Qin said, then it's simple. Another old man dressed in khaki swordsman attire shook his head. There are as many cultivators as there are hairs on a cow. Even if they stand there and let us kill them, I'm afraid we won't be able to kill them all. Swordsman Yuan Qing, does everyone in the skyscraper sword school have such thoughts? Are you scared witless by a bunch of pigs? Qin Jian glanced at the old man and sneered. Heh, I won't be so stupid as to kill those useless pigs. Yuan Qing of the Motian sword sect smiled and did not refute. Sigh, yes, if it were so simple, then there wouldn't be thousands of remains of sword cultivators in the sword tomb. There wouldn't be thousands of broken swords wailing. Lu Ruochang also sighed. At this moment, a middle-aged swordsman with a red face said, Swordsman Lu, this is only the first stage of the battle. We only need to follow the instructions of our masters and kill as many cultivators as possible so that we won't be forced back to the sword realm. Why are you so pessimistic? Chu Jianchong from the Xianjian sect? Lu Ruochang glanced at the middle-aged swordsman and asked, How is Duan Yuming, swordsman Duan? The 4 people from your Xianjian sect have all died at the hands of cultivators. Our battle this time also originated from your Xianjian sect. You should be on my side. Thank you for your concern, swordsman Lu. Senior Duan's primordial spirit has returned and has entered the Xianjian sect's sword pool to recuperate. If he can find a suitable body, he can take over it. Otherwise, he can't use the secret technique of weapon cultivators to feed the sword with his body and become a sword spirit. Chu Jianchong said in a sorrowful voice. How sad! Lu Ruochang sighed softly. This sword is naturally on LV Jianyo's side. Chu Jianchong cupped his hands and said, However, Chu thinks that we don't need to think too much. We only need to exhaust the strength of the Xianjian sect in the early stages of the battle and kill all the Qi refinement and foundation establishment disciples. This is to complete the task given by our masters. It's all nonsense. A drawn-out voice sounded. It was a weapon cultivator whose body was flashing with a faint brilliance. The weapon cultivator was extremely tall, like a bamboo pole. In the brilliance, there were several sections of a pagoda faintly visible. Didn't I hear that LV Jianchong was going to set up a formation in the sword catacomb? What's the situation? The weapon cultivator said coldly. I thought that everything was in order. I only need to lure all the cultivators to the sword catacomb. That's why I came over. If I'm going to listen to your nonsense, I'm going to turn back. Hee, so it's Senior Fan Koyuan from the 7 Spiritual Mountains. Lu Ruochang smiled and said, Senior Fan, don't be anxious. How can the illusory sword formation be easy to set up? Moreover, a simple sword formation may not be able to trap so many cultivators. I've left some assassins in the illusory sword formation. This isn't something that can be done easily. Oh? Then I've wrongly accused you? If there's anything you need the 7 spiritual mountains to do, just say it. If those formation weapons are to be used, I'll personally go into battle. With Senior Fan's words, I'm 100 times more confident. Lu Ruochang cupped his hands and said, I've invited all of you here to ask about your preparations. So you've already made preparations. Not bad, not bad. Fan Koyuan nodded with a smile. Sword friends from the Clear Sword Sect, Lunar Sun Sword Sect, Flame Bamboo Sword Sect, Failing Sword Manor, and Soaring Wind Sword Sect? What's your situation? Can you tell us about it? Lu Ruochang's gaze swept across everyone, and the green-robed swordsman shrunk his neck slightly. Lu Ruochang was very sharp, and a trace of sternness flashed in his eyes. He then looked at the others. Zhong Haoxuan from the Clear Sword Sect greets all of you. An extremely robust swordsman cupped his hands and said, My Clear Sword Sect has already found the sword spirit used in the illusory sword formation. If I'm not wrong, we should be able to find it within 3 months. Good! Lu Ruochang clapped his hands and praised. The yin-yang sword spirit that the clear sword sect is looking for is the most demanding. I didn't expect sword friend Zhong to be so capable to have found it in such a short period of time. It's really praiseworthy. -8. Chapter 23:11. My luck is indeed not bad. But this is also because the heavens are protecting my sword region. That Dao sect cultivator's luck has come to an end. Let them know who the true king of the Dawn Rain continent is. Zhong Haoshuan nodded coldly. Mu Ting of the Lunar Sword sect greets my fellow swordsman. A female swordsman dressed similarly to LV Ruochang stepped forward and bowed. However, this female swordsman's face was as beautiful as a flower, and she smiled wholeheartedly. The sword spirit that my lunar sword sect was looking for has been obtained. It is currently being nurtured in my Lunar Sword Valley's sword pool. If the illusory sword formation needs to be used, I can retrieve it at any time. The following two people, Tian Simu of the Flaming Bamboo Sword Sect and Ruo Ling of the Failing Sword Manor, both spoke about the results of their sections. The sword spirit and other items that they needed were all prepared. As long as LV Ruochang gave the order, the illusory sword great battle could begin. Good! Seeing that the swordsmen had completed their tasks extremely well, LV Ruochang smiled and said, "Thank you for your assistance, fellow swordsmen. I am extremely grateful. Back then, when you recommended me to take charge of the illusory sword formation, I was very nervous. With all of you sword friends working tirelessly, this sword finally has some confidence in my heart." LV Jianyu. The weapon cultivator, Fan Ning Yuan, frowned slightly and said, "I know about this illusory sword formation. I have used it before. Just by relying on it, this formation can kill Dao sect cultivators in the middle stage of the Golden Core stage, but it will be troublesome to deal with those in the late stage of the Golden Core stage. Moreover, with so many foundation establishment and chi refinement cultivators, the illusory sword formation might not be able to withstand it, right?" "Senior Fan is right," LV Ruochang said respectfully. "However, the last time this formation was set up was 3,000 years ago. Back then, countless Dao sect cultivators were killed, and the Golden Core cultivators were also frightened. If not for the 3 late-stage Golden Core cultivators who suddenly became nascent souls, I am afraid that we would have achieved even more glorious results. Yes, since you know, could it be that your illusory sword formation is even more powerful than the previous one?" "Of course." Lu Ruochang nodded his head confidently. "This time, I have set up the illusory sword formation in the sword tomb. Firstly, I can make use of the sword intent of the remnant sword in the sword tomb to increase the lethality of the illusory sword formation. Secondly, I can make use of the metal chi in the sword tomb to suppress the spiritual chi between the Dao sect cultivators and the heaven and earth, preventing any more Golden Core cultivators from conceiving. In this way, not only can we kill cultivators in a large area, we can even kill late Golden Core stage cultivators." "Yes, what LVGN you said makes sense." Weapon cultivator Fan Ning Yuan nodded slightly. "There are very few cultivators with a metal attribute constitution in the 3 cultivation kingdoms. Furthermore, it's unlikely that they'll be able to use the metal chi within the sword tomb. Furthermore, the sword catacomb is the most eye-catching place for sword cultivators and the Dao sect. You set up the illusory sword array there to lure them into the trap. They will definitely be surprised. Isn't this what the Dao sect meant by catching the enemy off guard?" A swordsman laughed. "I still have some misgivings." Weapon cultivator Fan Ning Yuan was still worried. "There are a lot of foundation establishment disciples in the Dao sect. Our illusory sword array doesn't have a sword cultivator to support it. I'm afraid, Senior Fan." LV Ruochang was not angry at Fan Ning Yuan's insistence on getting to the bottom of the matter. Instead, he was very willing for him to ask. LV Ruochang replied with a smile, "This is one of the things that I want to tell you." As he spoke, LV Ruochang looked at the green-robed swordsman and said with a smile, "Ling Yunwu from the Lingfeng Sword Sect, have you received what I gave you? Have you found the spirit-swallowing bugs?" "Ah? Spirit-swallowing bugs?" Hearing this, All the sword cultivators were stunned and looked at each other. Fan Mingyuan asked curiously, "LV are you talking about the spirit swallowing bugs?" "Yes." LV Ruochang looked away from Ling Yunwu and replied with a smile. "I found some records about the spirit swallowing bugs in the ancient books of the Black Phoenix Sword sect. 100 years ago, when I was traveling in the Meng Mountains, I happened to get the black silk wood. Therefore, I gave it to Ling Jianyu and asked him to find the spirit-swallowing bugs. After all, the spirit-swallowing bugs are near the Chestnut Valley, which is the closest to the Lingfeng Sword sect." "Well, I kind of understand now." Fan Mingyuan nodded slightly. LV Jianyu planned to use the spirit-swallowing bugs to devour the Qi refining and foundation establishment cultivators, and then use the illusory sword array to deal with the rest of the cultivators. "Exactly." Lu Ruochang's tone was slightly arrogant as he said, "This worm is the head of all spiritual worms in the world. It loves to devour spiritual energy, Dharma artifacts and Dharma treasures refined by Taoist cultivators, as well as their vital essence. It is very suitable to kill cultivators. I set a part of the illusory sword array especially for the spirit-swallowing bugs. Let's call it the spirit-swallowing array for now. As long as foundation building stage and Qi refining stage disciples enter this formation, they will certainly be killed by the spirit-swallowing bugs." "Well, good." The few weapon cultivators beside Fan Mingyuan also nodded slightly. However, the few beast cultivators beside them had unsightly expressions on their faces. "Ling Jianyu, have you found the spirit-swallowing bugs?" Fan Mingyuan looked at Ling Yunwu again. "Haha, why don't you say anything? Do you want to give me a surprise?" LV Ruochang smiled again, which was rare. After all, the spirit-swallowing bugs was her trick, and she had already given the windy silk wood to the Lingfeng sword sect, which was the safest step in the illusory sword array. She didn't think there would be any mistakes. "Well?" Ling Yunwu, who was in cyan clothes, was a little embarrassed. He mumbled and hesitated. "Thump!" LV Ruochang felt something was wrong and said coldly, "LV Jianyu, what do you mean? I gave you the windy silk wood and the sword pouch. Don't tell me you didn't see them." "Of course not." Ling Yunwu smiled apologetically. "I've already got the windy silk wood and the sword pouch, and I've been to Chestnut Valley many times. According to LV Jianyu's records, I finally found some clues. Although I can't be completely sure, but in that case, why don't you tell me directly?" LV Ruochang was relieved. "It's just that, when I was on my way here, I received a flying sword message from the sword sect." Ling Yunwu gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, "More than 30 bright sword third-grade disciples I sent to find the spirit-swallowing bugs were all killed." "More than 30 bright sword third-grade disciples? All killed?" LV Ruochang was also surprised. "The Taoism sect actually attacked Chestnut Valley? Was there a gold core cultivator?" "Well," Ling Yunwu said awkwardly, "the Taoism sect cultivators haven't attacked Chestnut Valley yet. These disciples were killed near White Jade Mountain. Didn't your disciples go to Chestnut Valley to find the spirit-swallowing bugs? Why did they go to White Jade Mountain?" LV Ruochang sneered. "Ling Jianyu, don't tell me, you gave the sword pouch and the black silk wood to your disciples." "That's right. That's right." Ling Yunwu's expression was uncertain. LV Ruochang's expression changed greatly. He stared at Ling Yunwu for a long time and sneered. "Ling Jianyu, you're really at ease. That's the black silk wood, one of the few spiritual woods that can be used to find the spirit-swallowing bugs. You actually let your disciples, who are only at the Bright Sword realm, be in charge of it. And that sword pouch, although it's empty, it's still a treasure. You don't have to worry about letting people hold it. Do you really think that the things of my Black Phoenix Sword sect are not things?" "Alas, no matter what LVGNU says, I can't refute it." Ling Yunwu smiled bitterly. "I already had a plan last time. I was going to go there personally, but with LVGNU's spiritual sword summoning me, I dare not come. Moreover, I was afraid of delaying LVGNU's important matter, so I sent my capable disciples. I wanted to give you all a surprise during this period. But who knew that your proud disciples actually ran to the White Jade Mountain and were killed by the practitioners of the Gold Core realm? Elvira Chung seemed to be ruthless and said coldly, I've already explained the matter of the spirit-swallowing bugs clearly. The spirit-swallowing bugs are the most important part of the illusory sword formation. If your Lingfeng sword sect delays this matter, you'll have to bear the consequences. Yes. What else could Ling Yunwu say? He cupped his hands and said, I feel guilty. When this matter is over, I'll immediately go to the White Jade Mountain and find the black silk wood and the sword pouch to atone for my mistakes. Atone for your mistakes? What kind of achievements do you have? Elvira Chang sneered. Who knows which Gold Core realm practitioner killed the 30 swordsmen? Where are you going to find him? LV Jianyu, a beast practitioner who had been silent for a long time, whispered, You don't only need the black silk wood to find the spirit-swallowing bugs, right? There are a few other kinds. And if we know the approximate location of the spirit-swallowing bugs, our Quilted Mountain sect has a secret technique that can help us find them. LV Rochang looked up at the beast practitioner who was as short as a baby and sighed. Where are we going to find the other kinds of spiritual objects? Besides, I know that the Quilted Mountain sect and the 7 spiritual mountains have this secret technique, but I'm sure Senior Green Peak knows the consequences of the secret technique better than I do, right? Alas, what's the point of talking about the consequences at this point? Green Peak said bitterly. We beast practitioners have always been regarded as abnormal by the Taoist sect. We're indebted to the sword practitioners for protecting us. Now, as long as we can use our beast practitioners, we'll do it even if we have to sacrifice our lives. Okay. LV Ruochan nodded and didn't comment. Let's wait for my news. Ling Yunwu felt very guilty and smiled apologetically. If news of my death comes, Senior Green Peak will make the decision. What are you talking about? Fan Mingyuan scolded. Although we don't cultivate Taoist techniques and don't understand karma, we're still cultivators in the world. You can't speak nonsense. Yes, I understand. Ling Yunwu hurriedly bowed. Humph. LV Ruochan glanced at Ling Yunwu coldly. Just as he was about to speak, he heard a bird's cry. It was like a mournful wail that soared into the sky. It pierced everyone's ears and immediately disrupted the tranquility of the valley. Even the quiet sound of the lake had layers of ripples. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote for it at Chidian. Com. -8. Chapter 23:12. Who is it? The swordsmen were shocked and turned to look. A yellow light flashed, and from the light, a giant rock that was hundreds of feet in size rushed into the valley, closely rubbing against the cracks in the valley. Once the giant rock entered the valley, it immediately spread its wings. Its huge wings flapped, and the wind howled, casting its shadow on Lake Chui. The giant rock did not stop. Instead, it circled above Lake Chui, and its sharp eyes swept past the swordsmen. The swordsmen, weapon cultivators, and beast cultivators felt a chill in their hearts. Then, their faces became respectful again, and they bowed in unison. After the giant rock circled around Lake Chui, it proudly landed on the stone wall and retracted its wings. At this moment, 2 distinct figures, one tall and one short, were revealed on the giant rock's back. The most conspicuous one was naturally the tall one. This person was 3 feet tall, had thick arms, and a muscular body. On his head, which was much larger than a dipper, was a big red nose. It was very eye-catching. Looking at the short figure, he was shorter than an ordinary person by more than half, and only reached the giant's knees. There was nothing special about this dwarf, but there was always a cunning look in his 2 small eyes from time to time. Pun! The giant landed on a protrusion on the stone wall, and the stone wall shook slightly. Greetings, Senior Qi! The swordsmen bowed in unison. The giant rock was Qi Ping, the valley master of the Osprey Valley in the Hing country. He was a beast cultivator whose cultivation was comparable to a sword transformation realm cultivator. Wait for me. Qi Ping withdrew his figure and reverted to a middle-aged man covered in yellow light. He raised his hand and gestured. Yes. The swordsman stood up. How did the discussion go? Qi Ping asked. We respected what you said and only delayed the path sex cultivators near Sky Patrol City. Moreover, we are setting up a large formation in the Sword Tomb, and we are preparing to give the path sect a head-on blow. Lu Ruochang replied respectfully. Just as he was about to introduce his plan, Qi Ping waved his hand and said, This is something that you should worry about. Don't tell this old man. It's not my turn to step up yet. Yes, I understand. This is a chance for us to train. LV Ruochang didn't dare to say much and replied respectfully. Yes, this old man is here to bring you some news. Qi Ping raised his hand and said, This is the chief of the mountain crossing giant tribe, Lian Xiao Chao. This is the chief of the Cloud Cave dwarf tribe, Gao Dazhuang. I believe all of you sword friends know that the giant tribe and the dwarf tribe are also participating in this war under the persuasion of the sword cultivator elders. Everyone hasn't seen the two tribe leaders yet, right? Although the giant had given him an extremely Xiao name, and the dwarf had given him an extremely Dida name, none of the swordsmen dared to laugh. Their faces were all unusually respectful. When he heard Qi Ping's introduction, he bowed again and said, Greetings, Patriarch Lian and Patriarch Gao. Yes, get up, get up. Gao Dazhuang was very happy and waved his hand to signal everyone to get up. Even Xiao Chao didn't say anything. It's great news that the giants and dwarves are joining the war, Qi Ping said again. However, this old man has even better news to share with all of you. This old man has joined forces with the elders of a few weapon cultivators and beast cultivators to head to Alchemy Valley. I have already convinced the two hidden experts in the valley. As long as the two elders appear, the nascent soul cultivators of the Taoist sect will definitely not be their opponents. Moreover, what's even better is that it will definitely not cross the bottom line of the Taoist sect's spirit-severing stage-old monster. When the swordsmen heard this, they all had strange expressions on their faces. Indeed, they didn't even know where the Alchemy Valley was in the Huan country, let alone the hidden experts. Senior Qi, what you said is... Fan Mingyuan seemed to have thought of something and stuttered. Yes, it's that old man. Qi Ping nodded. Moreover, there's another old man, who I'm afraid you don't even know. He seems to be even more powerful than the old man you mentioned. This matter is not set in stone yet, so don't think too much. We definitely can't ask them to take action now. In the end, we just need them to appear and control the situation. Yes, this junior understands. Fan Mingyuan hurriedly bowed and replied, Haha, this old man was just in a moment of happiness. This old man is here today to bring you some news. Qi Ping laughed again. Clan leader Gao's people are the best at the earth amplification technique, which is even more powerful than the Taoist sect's 5 elements escape technique. The dwarf clan's people found many Taoist sect cultivators moving in the east of the Sword Realm. Moreover, they seem to be moving to a few fixed places. Hence, clan leader Gao told this old man about this matter. This old man was with clan leader Lian. When I thought of you all here, I came to inform you. Yes, thank you for your message, Senior Qi. LV Ruochang bowed and thanked him. This is also a topic that we are discussing here. This is a task that my master and I have assigned to us. Oh? I see. Qi Ping smiled and nodded. The younger generation will surpass us in time. All right, you all can discuss the arrangements. This old man won't interfere anymore. After he finished speaking, Qi Ping's body glowed with a strange brilliance. It looked faint, but it covered his entire body. When the brilliance disappeared, the giant rock appeared on the stone wall again. With a long cry, the giant rock bent its neck toward the sky. Its cry shook the sky. Then, it flapped its wings and slowly flew up. Gao Dazhuang and Lian Xiaochao hurriedly jumped up and landed on the giant rock's back. Lian Xiaocao's body was so big that even the stone wall shook. However, when she landed on the giant rock's back, the giant rock didn't even sway. This junior respectfully sends Senior Qi off. LV Ruochang and the others bowed respectfully and watched as the giant rock spread its wings and flew through the gap in the valley sealed by the hurricane. When the giant rock's figure disappeared into the gap, LV Ruochang and the others straightened up. Their eyes were still filled with respect. Senior Qi is indeed a godly person. Fan Keyuan sighed with emotion. Not only did he find the giant clan, but he also found the mysterious dwarf clan. The most incredible thing is that person, he actually knew where to go. He invited him out. Who is that person? Who is that person? LV Ruochang couldn't help but ask in a low voice. Haha, Senior Qi has given the order. This old man doesn't dare to speak carelessly, Fan Keyuan said with a smile. Besides, this old man doesn't know who the other person is. Forget it, LV Ruochang said with a smile. What will come will come. We just have to do our own thing. That's right. Fan Keyuan nodded. Then, he asked curiously. Senior Qi's news is very important. I'm afraid it's a new plan of the Taoist sect. Why did LVGNU say that you already have a plan? -8. Chapter 23:13. Haha, Senior Fan, why do you think the people of Sword Realm are attacking the 3 countries? LV Ruochang asked with a smile. Haha, are you trying to test this old man? Fan Mingyuan laughed. No, I'm just asking casually. LV Ruochang shook his head slightly. Fan Mingyuan smiled and said, If it was the previous battles, I might have thought that it was because of the conflict between Sword Realm and the 3 countries, so we had to fight to determine the outcome. However, this old man knows that the reason for today's battle is because of the 2 girls from the Xianjian sect and the 2 illusory swordsmen that they lost. However, the truth is that due to the change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, spiritual stones, spiritual herbs and other items have decreased. Our sword domain is too narrow and cannot compare to the 3 countries of the Tao sect. Therefore, we have to snatch their spiritual herbs and spiritual stones. That's right, Senior Fan is right. LV Ruochang nodded and said, This is also what the elders told us at the beginning of the battle. Although the Tao sect's array is not as powerful as the sword array of our sword domain, in terms of concealment and defense, it is stronger than the sword array. At the border of our sword domain, Shi country, and Meng country, there are more than 10 spirit stone veins. However, because of the protection of the Tao sect's formation, it is not easy to find them. In the previous battles, we spent some effort on them, but the results were minimal. Moreover, Sword Realm did not lack spirit stones at that time, so who would care about them? However, it's different now. Sword Realm's spirit stones are about to dry up. The spirit stone veins at the border of Sword Realm have become our savior. Oh? The purpose of this battle is to steal these spirit stone veins? Fan Mingyuan suddenly realized. The attacks and killings are all just a pretense? Haha, if Senior Fan understands it this way, then it's possible. LV Ruochang and Fan Mingyuan's conversation spread throughout Lake Chui, so all the swordsmen could hear it clearly. Many people had the same look of realization as Fan Mingyuan at this moment. What about the illusory sword formation of the sword catacomb? Fan Keyuan asked curiously. This has nothing to do with snatching the spirit stone mine, right? Hee. Not only can we kill off cultivators, we can also snatch the spirit stone mine. Isn't that killing 2 birds with 1 stone? Lu Ruochang said with a chuckle. Fine. These things are too complicated. I really can't understand them. Whatever LVGNU says, I'll do it. Fan Mingyuan turned to look at the swordsman and smiled bitterly. The other swordsmen are probably the same as me. Perhaps this is the reason why the teachers didn't make it clear. I didn't mean to keep it a secret. LV Ruochang shook his head. This matter is very important. The fewer people who know about it, the better. Yes, I know. Fan Mingyuan waved his hand. Elder Qi, are you saying that the Tao sect's cultivators are sending disciples to protect the spirit stone mine? Exactly. Lu Ruochang nodded. The cultivators of the sword domain have been pressuring the Tao sect cultivators. They have clearly sensed danger. The spirit stone mine is even more important to them, so they have to increase their vigilance. However, they don't know that the sword domain's goal is the spirit stone mine. They want to send reinforcements, but they are afraid that we know the location of the spirit stone mine. They don't want to attract our attention, so they are fearless and mysterious. To put it bluntly, they are not even worth a single spirit stone. How should we deal with them? I will listen to Elvigienio's orders. I dare not. I have already asked the swordsmen of the Quilted Mountain sect and the Wild Beast Mountain Manor to help keep an eye on the cultivators' movements. Now that I have the help of the dwarf clan, I am even more confident. Elvirochung said with great confidence. Following her explanation, various orders were issued as they discussed. The swordsmen of the various sects nodded solemnly and accepted the orders. This discussion lasted for several days. After all the details were discussed, the swordsmen who received the mission did not waste a single word. They flew out of the gap on their swords, leaving behind Ling Yunwu of the High Wind Sword sect. Ling Jianyu, it's not that I want to blame you. Elvirochang knew what Ling Yunwu meant, but her tone was still indifferent. In addition to the previous arrangements, the High Wind Sword sect has to complete and cooperate with the actions of the other sections. You still have to find the black silk wood. After all, if you can save the life of a beast cultivator, you should do it. Yes, I understand. Ling Yunwu nodded. This matter originated from me. Even if I have to pay with my life, I will find the black silk wood and the sword pouch. I will not implicate the sword friends of the beast cultivators. Haha, Ling Jianyu, you don't have to do this. The cultivators who appeared in White Jade Mountain were at most middle-stage Gold Core realm. Maybe there were some late-stage Foundation Establishment realm cultivators. How can Ling Jianyu be afraid of them? Don't worry and go boldly. The cultivators who can hurt you are still in Sky Patrol City, outside the sword domain. Yes, I will leave. Once I find the spirit-swallowing bugs in Chestnut Valley, I will send a flying sword message to Elvigienyu. Ling Yunwu cupped his hands and bid farewell. Okay, I will listen to Ling Jianyo's good news. Elvirochang nodded and watched Ling Yunwu fly away. She also jumped and turned into a sharp sword light, rushing out of the valley. Only the green lake behind her was left undisturbed. Besides, the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect and the Taiching sect were in the same place. Naturally, they could no longer use the drifting cloud flying boat. The 10 disciples flew together with the remaining 7 disciples of the Taiching sect. The disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect flew faster than the disciples of the Taiching sect. Xiaohua didn't notice it at first, but after flying for an hour, he finally came to his senses and nodded to himself. The Imperial Thunder sect's cultivation method is lightning cultivation. Although the lightning cultivation method has already changed to the lightning escape technique, the various cultivation methods derived from the lightning escape technique are still effective. When the Imperial Thunder sect's disciples practice cultivation methods, they naturally practice their flying techniques extremely well. Cui Hongshun and the others naturally noticed it. The uneasiness in their hearts when they saw the disciples of the Taiching sect gradually lessened, and a trace of pride appeared on their faces. Unfortunately, this thunder escape technique needs the help of external objects, especially the inner elixir of the Thunder Beast. The inner elixir of 2 yin and yang attributes is used to create the power of thunder and then turn into the thunder escape technique. This is also the reason why the Imperial Thunder sect recruits disciples with thunder attribute physiques. Unfortunately, a single thunder attribute can only touch the edge of the thunder escape technique. If the thunder escape technique is mastered, it is still far from enough. Moreover, I don't have a thunder attribute physique. With the help of the Phoenix celestial body, I embedded the 2 inner elixirs of the Thunder Beast into the celestial body, and refined the thunder escape technique to the realm of thunder escape technique. If I didn't witness the vision of Shue's foundation establishment, how could I have such an opportunity? However, I'm at a loss as to how others can cultivate this Imperial Lightning Travel technique. After all, they either can't embed the inner elixir into the celestial body, or they already have a thunder attribute physique. How they use the inner elixir is different. Let's not talk about others. The great divine ability that was given to Xiangjili, the thunder escape technique, is the most suitable. He was born from the inner elixir of a male thunder beast, so using the inner elixir of a female thunder beast would make it easier. But how to do it is still very troublesome. Thinking up to here, a bright light flashed through Xiaohua's mind. It was a great merit he made when he first entered the Imperial Thunder sect. Thunder-devouring bead! That's right, it's really that item. Xiaohua's eyes showed a trace of understanding. This item is not only the nemesis of all the Imperial Thunder sect's formations, but also the beginning and end of thunder. Didn't I see the image of the founder of the Imperial Thunder sect, Taoist Master Qian Yun, in the main hall of the Thunder Palace? He was enlightened by comprehending the Thunder Bead and founded the Imperial Thunder sect. Because of this, he ascended. If I can comprehend this item, wouldn't I be able to master the Thunder Escape technique? Sigh, what a pity! The Thunder-devouring bead is the treasure of the Imperial Thunder sect. Ever since I took it out of my space, it has disappeared without a trace. How could Taoist Master Qianlei let me comprehend it? It seems that everything depends on fate. Right, what about Qian Qinghua? This guy hibernated and never appeared again. It's been dozens of years, why haven't I seen any traces of him? I'm afraid he has met with disaster. While Xiaohua's thoughts were running wild, they traveled for another half a day. During this half a day, they actually didn't see any traces of sword cultivators. However, the foothills under their feet were covered with more and more snow, and even the chirping of birds and the language of beasts were rare. Clearly, this place was very remote. Fellow Taoists, we will reach our destination in another half a day. Seeing that the journey was safe, He Fan Yuan's vigilance also weakened. Seeing that flying was very boring, he laughed and said loudly. His voice was not soft, and the snow on the mountain wall was disturbed. At the peak, first, a palm-sized snowflake fell. Then, as the snowflake fell, more and more snowflakes fell. Not long after, an overwhelming amount of snow fell from the sky like a collapsing mountain. The disciples of the Tai Ching sect and the Imperial Lightning sect were flying between two tall mountains. The snow on top of the canyon was extremely powerful, and it covered the entire canyon. Everyone's divine sense swept over and saw that the snowflakes were like dust, and the accumulated snow was like a tide, covering half of the sky. Ah? Snow, avalanche? He Fan Yuan was shocked. He really didn't expect that just one sentence from him would cause such a big trouble. He had heard about this avalanche from the guards of Sky Patrol City, but he never thought that he would actually encounter one. Quickly fly! At this moment, no one dared to hesitate. No one wanted to fight against the heavenly might. Although the avalanche was still very far away, it was still an aurora after all. If they were really buried by the snow, even if they were Foundation establishment cultivators, their vitality would be greatly damaged. Moreover, the most important thing was that he had lost all face. Surging like waves, falling like a mountain peak. Although this small amount of snow is very light and humble, when there is a lot of it, it actually has such great power. Heaven and earth are so mysterious, any inconspicuous place can be a reference for us cultivators. Xiaohua unhurriedly flew behind everyone, allowing the snowflakes to hit his face like white mist. He released his divine sense and carefully observed the gradual formation of the avalanche. It gradually grew from small to large, causing him to sigh with emotion in his heart. -8. Chapter 23:14. Although the avalanche was very powerful, covering half of the canyon, and the rumbling sounds echoed in the canyon, everyone was still cultivators, and most of them were Foundation establishment cultivators. They had already escaped from the canyon before the avalanche hit them. He Fan Yuan smiled bitterly, and this time he lowered his voice. Captain Chui, it's all because of my carelessness. Let's not talk about it now. Chui Hongshan seemed to have thought of something, and quickly lowered his voice. Let's leave quickly. Also, it's best to take a detour. Yes. That's right. He Fan Yuan's face turned cold, and he came to a realization. He released his divine sense and looked around carefully, then he asked, Captain Chui, how do you think we should take a detour? Captain He, you can decide, Chui Hongshan said humbly. After all, Captain He is my senior brother. All right. He Fang Yuan knew this was not the time to be humble, so he waved his hand and flew towards another direction along the foothills. After waiting for the Imperial Thunder Sect and Tai Ching Sect disciples to fly away for a while, a small human head suddenly popped out from the clean rock wall that had just experienced the avalanche. That human head had a small nose and small eyes like a child's. The avalanche actually happened here? That human head mumbled in a low voice, and then jumped out from the rock wall. It was a dwarf who was less than 2 feet tall. That dwarf's nose twitched a few times, and a trace of joy appeared in his eyes. Cultivator! Haha, there's actually a cultivator here. I found the cultivator's whereabouts. After speaking, the small eyes blinked a few times in joy, and with a stomp of his foot, his body once again disappeared into the rock wall, and just like Xiaohua's earth escape technique, he chased after the Imperial Thunder Sect disciples. How would the Imperial Thunder Sect disciples know that their whereabouts had already been discovered by the dwarf? Over there, they were still extremely careful in concealing their whereabouts, and constantly changing their direction, so that their goal of heading towards Jinquan Mountain would not be exposed. Another 2 days passed, and just as everyone was about to fly towards Jinquan Mountain under He Fang Yuan's lead, there was a rumbling sound in front of them, and the ground was shaking. Because of He Fang Yuan and the other Tai Ching Sect disciples, Xiaohua was too lazy to release his Buddha sense. Now that he felt it at the same time as everyone else, he immediately released his divine sense. Seeing the situation over there, he was stunned, and then a trace of joy appeared. A few miles ahead to the left, there were more than 20 beast cultivators who had turned into birds. They were circling in the air and attacking the cultivators who were trapped in the air. Below the cultivators, there were more than a dozen giants who were dozens of feet tall. They held huge spiked clubs in their hands and waved them in the air. As for the besieged cultivators, there were about 40 of them. They all wore different Taoist robes and were clearly from different sections. Although these cultivators activated their magic artifacts and fought with all their might, their speed could not compare to the beast cultivators. Not only could their magic artifacts not hit the vital parts of the beast cultivators, many times, they were forced to fall down by the beast cultivators, and they looked very miserable. As for the bird cultivators, although there were fewer of them, their attack power seemed to be on par with the cultivators. However, they only surrounded and pressured the cultivators, not allowing them to escape. They even forced the cultivators to fall into the giants' attack range. Looking at the ground, there were several corpses, and they were all badly mutilated. Obviously, they were all done by the giants' terrifying spiked clubs. Seeing such a pressing situation, Chui Hongshan hesitated. The cultivators who were trapped in the air by the beast cultivators and giants were all Foundation Establishment cultivators, but even they were in such a miserable state, running for their lives, and even struggling at death's door. How could he and the other Imperial Thunder Sect disciples be able to get away with it? Not only him, even He Fang Yuan was hesitating. He was different from Chui Hongshan. He had already lost 3 Tai Ching Sect disciples, and if he got involved in this killing situation, he might suffer even more losses. Moreover, the beast cultivators and giants did not seem to have noticed their arrival. If they escaped now, it was still not too late. The scene was unusually quiet, and it was truly a torture. The Imperial Thunder Sect disciples involuntarily looked at Xiaohua. Damn it, why are you looking at me? Xiaohua was somewhat angry in his heart. He really didn't want to reveal too much of his strength in front of others. However, he also knew that these 20 or so bird cultivators and a dozen giants were absolutely not something that these disciples could deal with. He really had no choice but to take action. He Fang Yuan was naturally astute. When he saw Chui Hongshan and the others looking at Xiaohua, he immediately understood. Of course, he also looked at Xiaohua. Seeing He Fang Yuan looking at Xiaohua, the Tai Ching Sect disciples also looked at Xiaohua. In an instant, the gazes of the two sect's disciples fell on Xiaohua. Go! Xiaohua cursed inwardly, but he could not show it on his face. He waved his hand and said only one word, then slowly flew forward. Go! Cui Hongshan's heart relaxed. He waved his hand and said loudly, No matter which sect's disciples are from, since they are Dao sect cultivators, they are our fellow disciples. We cannot let them fight alone. Yes, we will follow Captain Chui's orders. Dui Qimeng and the others replied loudly. With Xiaohua's guarantee, their hearts tightened. Seeing the Imperial Thunder sect disciples so valiant, the Tai Ching sect disciples felt slightly guilty. They immediately felt that they were small, so they also shouted. That's right, what joy is there in life, what fear is there in death? If we don't take action now, we will have inner demons in the future. How can our cultivation progress? Kill! The group of Tai Ching sect disciples and Imperial Thunder sect disciples all flew to the front and actually surpassed Xiaohua. They charged towards the group that was already in a precarious situation. This is great! At this time, the besieged Dao sect cultivators naturally discovered that there were reinforcements. Their hearts felt incomparably warm, as if they had encountered a sunny day amidst a gloomy rain. Jie. When the bird cultivators heard the commotion, they were first startled. However, when they saw that it was only a dozen or so foundation establishment cultivators, their hearts relaxed. They each opened their mouths and cried out, then beat their wings and did their best to kill the besieged cultivators. Attack! Cui Hongshan and the others did not dare to be negligent. They flew high to avoid coming into contact with the giants on the ground. They had already taken out their respective magic tools and attacked the bird cultivators. The bird cultivators' figures were very fast. They beat their wings and flew up, easily dodging the magic tools. Then, they expanded the range of their attacks and surrounded the Imperial Thunder sect and Tai Ching sect disciples who came as reinforcements. There were only 20 or so bird cultivators, but they actually dared to deal with 50 cultivators. The gap in the encirclement was definitely much larger. The 40 or so cultivators who were previously besieged saw the gap in the encirclement expand, and their faces revealed joy. They knew that they had a chance to escape. However, they could only watch. No one could really escape. -8. Chapter 23:15. But just as these cultivators turned around and were about to attack the bird cultivators with their magic artifacts, a voice called out, Senior Brother Jiang, I'm really sorry. As the voice rang out, an early-stage Foundation establishment disciple with a well-built body wearing the Taoist robes of the Nanming sect broke away from the group of cultivators. He charged through the gap between two bird cultivators and flew into the distance. Zheng Shuo! You! Roared a mid-Foundation establishment Nanming sect disciple. Just as he was about to rebuke Xing Shuo, however, a few more disciples suddenly flew out from the group of Lightning Rider sect disciples who had been brandishing their dermic artifacts to meet up with the Lightning Rider sect disciples. They didn't even bother to greet them. They were even worse than Xing Shuo. You wait! Cui Hongshan was stupefied. He really hadn't expected that when he and the others came to help, these disciples would actually abandon them and flee by themselves. The escape of these disciples was not a big deal, but it tugged at the last heartstrings in the hearts of the cultivators. Even the cultivators with the most solid hearts were moved. Everyone had to face a test in this life and death situation, whether it was for themselves or their conscience. Xiaohua looked at them coldly, and then at the beast cultivators who were surrounding them but not attacking. He already understood that this was done by the beast cultivators on purpose. Fan Yuan's earlier conjecture that beast cultivators and weapon cultivators were brainless was instantly dispelled. Stop right there! The captains from the various sects were all furious and hurriedly shouted. Unfortunately, it would have been better if they hadn't shouted. Once they shouted, even more cultivators took the chance to escape. In just a moment, nearly 20 cultivators had already escaped through the gap between the bird cultivators' encirclement. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the group of beast cultivators surrounded the remaining 40 or so cultivators. In other words, the Imperial Thunder Sect and Tai Ching Sect disciples had come to replace these cultivators, and these cultivators had replaced the Imperial Thunder Sect and Tai Ching Sect disciples, and escaped. At this moment, a Tai Ching Sect disciple couldn't take it anymore and glared at Xiaohua. His eyes were filled with hatred, and he didn't even greet Xiaohua as he flew towards a gap that seemed to be right in front of Xiaohua. However, just as he flew out of the gap, Xiaohua said urgently, "Quickly come back!" Only a fool would reply. The disciple's figure passed by the bird cultivator, and he was extremely happy. Now that he had the time to spare, he sneered back. Unfortunately, just as he spoke, the forward beast cultivator on his left suddenly flashed and dashed toward his back like a bolt of black lightning. The bird cultivator's flying speed was simply too fast, and he wasn't far from the Tai Ching Sect disciple. Although the Tai Ching Sect disciple was extremely vigilant, he still only noticed the bird cultivator when he was a few feet away from him. Whoosh! The bird cultivator's wings suddenly swept out like an extremely hard artifact towards the Tai Ching disciple's neck. The Tai Ching Sect disciple had already activated his magic treasure and attacked without hesitation. Wing! The sound was precisely the shape of a plum blossom. Flower petals spread out from the magic treasure and enveloped the bird cultivator who was about to pounce over. The bird cultivator didn't dodge at all. With a muffled zzz sound, the flower petals exploded around the bird cultivator and completely enveloped him. A trace of joy flashed through the Tai Ching Sect disciple's eyes, and he was about to use his magic power to fly away again. Ga! The bird cultivator, who was originally a bit crooked from the flower petals, suddenly opened his mouth and his body swayed even more strangely. He immediately broke through the magic treasure's attack and instantly closed in on the Tai Ching Sect disciple. At the same time, his beak-like mouth suddenly pecked forward and chiseled into the Tai Ching Sect disciple's shoulder. The beast cultivator's beak broke through the Tai Ching Sect disciple's defensive yellow talisman and tore off a large chunk of flesh from the disciple's shoulder, revealing the pale white bone inside. Since the Tai Ching Sect disciple was injured, his body was already crooked and he slowly fell from the sky. He was barely able to stabilize himself in midair. At this moment, all the cultivators who were looking at this disciple had a trace of pity in their eyes. They actually couldn't bear to see him die. Bam! With a loud bang, a huge mace appeared behind the Tai Ching Sect's disciple, causing a gust of wind to blow as it appeared behind him. The Tai Ching Sect disciple's defensive light that had been bitten through by the bird cultivator was immediately annihilated the moment it touched the spiked club. The spiked club hit the Tai Ching Sect disciple's head almost without any resistance. Like a watermelon being smashed, red and white, a disgusting smell of blood burst out. All of this happened in just a few breaths of time. Xiaohua had time to give a warning, and He Fan Yuan didn't even have time to shout angrily before the Tai Ching Sect disciple died. Their broken corpses fell to the ground, mixing with the dead disciples from before. Hiss! Everyone from the Tai Ching Sect and Imperial Thunder Sect sucked in a breath of cold air. They finally understood why so many cultivators were surrounded but none dared to escape. However, before these people could recover from their shock, another strange thing happened. Opposite the dead Tai Ching Sect disciple, another Imperial Thunder Sect disciple also quickly rushed towards the gap between the two bird cultivators. This disciple, is he sick? The cultivators were stunned. After all, although this Imperial Thunder Sect disciple's flying speed was fast, it was only slightly faster than the Tai Ching Sect disciple. It was far from surpassing the flying speed of a bird cultivator. However, the Imperial Thunder Sect disciple actually had a puzzled expression. That's right, it was puzzled, not astonishment, grief, or any other expression. Because this person was none other than Xiaohua. Xiaohua's figure flew towards the gap between the two bird cultivators. His choice of location was extremely good. It was right between the two. The two beast cultivators naturally stared at the scene in front of them. When they saw Xiaohua flying, they also followed him. However, after flying for a while, they stopped again after flying for less than half a foot. This was because they both saw that the other party had already moved. Of course, they stopped at the same time. When they saw each other stop, they flew up at the same time. However, after flying for a foot, they seemed to have a tacit understanding and stopped at the same time. They waited for the other to attack while they guarded the encirclement. Damn it, is this an act? If Xiaohua wasn't a genuine cultivator, the cultivators in the encirclement would have suspected that Xiaohua was friends with these two bird cultivators. Jie! Jie! At this time, the two bird cultivators were also angry and seemed to be criticizing each other. At the same time, they no longer hesitated and flapped their wings, attacking Xiaohua from the left and right. Ouch! Xiaohua looked as panicked as the Tai Ching sect disciple. He was very afraid of the bird cultivators who suddenly closed in on him. He didn't even take out his magic tool. With a wave of his hand, dozens of fireball talismans were shot out. Rumble! These fireball talismans were actually of the highest quality. They set off a heatwave that soared to the sky. They were even more powerful than the magic tools of the Tai Ching sect disciple. Unfortunately, Xiaohua's opponents were bird cultivators who were famous for their body techniques. This top-grade fireball talisman only managed to burn a few pieces of the bird cultivators' feathers. Not only was it unable to kill them, it had even angered them. Jie jie! Two extremely angry bird cries resounded. The two bird cultivators flew out from the flames and pecked at Xiaohua's shoulders like lightning. Xiaohua's figure rapidly descended, wanting to dodge the attacks of the two bird cultivators. Below him, a giant also raised its wolf-tooth club, preparing to attack Xiaohua's butt. Serves him right! This was the thought of all the cultivators except for the Imperial Thunder Sect disciple and He Fan Yuan. Even the Tai Ching sect disciples felt a trace of satisfaction in their hearts. In their eyes, the initial stage foundation establishment Xiaohua was already a dead man. Facing two bird cultivators and a giant, and falling into such a passive situation, even a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator wouldn't be able to escape, right? Just as everyone's thoughts became active again, retracting their gazes from Xiaohua's body and looking at the gap next to Xiaohua after he lured away the two bird cultivators, a golden light flashed in front of everyone's eyes. Immediately, they heard Xiaohua shout, "Damn it, you dared to hit my butt! I'd like to see if your strength is greater or mine!" Immediately after, in front of everyone's eyes, Xiaohua suddenly took out an ordinary stick that was 2 feet long and as thick as the mouth of a bull. He actually calmly twirled the stick in his hand in an extremely gaudy manner before smashing it towards the incomparably huge mace. Woo! This was the sound of the giant's arm, which was as thick as an adult's waist, swinging the wolf-tooth club. This whistling sound was so loud that it covered all the movements in the surroundings. Even when the giant stepped on the ground trembled slightly. Naturally, the sound of the wind on Xiaohua's stick was also concealed. Or perhaps Xiaohua's stick didn't make any sound at all? When the group of cultivators heard the sound of the wind and looked at Xiaohua again, they couldn't understand how the two bird cultivators suddenly fell from the sky. Although they didn't seem to have any injuries, in their divine senses, the two bird cultivators were completely dead. What is going on? While they were bewildered, He Fan Yuan's eyes shined with extraordinary splendor. It was not that he didn't have confidence in Xiaohua, just like now, when Xiaohua was competing with the giant in terms of strength, he firmly believed that Xiaohua wouldn't be at a disadvantage. But when fighting with the two bird cultivators earlier, or trying to escape from the two bird cultivators, he didn't have any confidence in Xiaohua. Naturally, He Fan Yuan had been staring at Xiaohua all along. He had an involuntary conviction in his heart. He firmly believed that Xiaohua wasn't a cultivator who would run away without a fight. Sure enough, when He Fan Yuan's eyelids slightly blinked, that golden light came from Xiaohua's hand. He simply couldn't see where this golden light came from. It was as if it was just the outline of a flood dragon, and with just a flash of golden light, it passed through the necks of the two arrogant bird cultivators. Immediately after, the two bird cultivators fell from the sky without even making a sound. -8. Chapter 23:16. However, Fan Yuan could clearly see that in the short time the golden light disappeared and the staff was raised. Xiao Hua reached out and took away the storage pouches on the waists of the two beast cultivators. Dang! A deafening sound resounded. That intense fluctuation came from the place where the staff and the mace collided. Just like the fireball talisman that Xiao Hua threw out earlier, it instantly washed away all the snow and other objects within a radius of 6 meters. Immediately after, that fluctuation was like the surging waves of the sea, rushing out in all directions. In the air, whether it was the Dao sect cultivators or the beast cultivators, they were all unable to stand steadily from the impact of this sound wave. Even the Imperial Thunder Sect's Qi refinement disciples and the two beast cultivators' bodies swayed a few times before falling from the air. Ha ha ha! Xiao Hua's loud laughter resounded again after the sound wave. Good strength, good strength. Take another strike from this young master's staff. As he spoke, Xiao Hua's figure flew up once again. That long staff streaked across the sky, emitting a whimper sound, and smashed towards the giant who was standing there foolishly. His arm was already completely numb, and his mace was also twisted in the middle. Looking at the giant's feet again, that pair of large feet had already sunk into the ground. It was actually smashed into the ground by Xiao Hua. Dang! Another sound resounded. This sound was clearly not as powerful as the first one, but it still lingered in everyone's ears. But this time, that giant's mace was completely bent, it was simply unable to take shape. Even the giant's arms were trembling, powerlessly hanging down. His face was pale, and his eyes flashed with fear. Take another strike from this young master's staff! Xiao Hua was unforgiving. The staff was lifted up again as if it was light. Something shocking happened. Before Xiao Hua could lift up the staff, that giant actually pulled out his feet from the ground. Without saying anything, he dragged the mace and flew towards the distance. That large foot smashed into the ground, causing the ground to tremble. Don't run! Take another strike from this young master's staff! Xiao Hua's figure suddenly flew up, as if he was chasing after that giant. However, with a slight sway of his figure, he actually arrived at the nearest giant and smashed down with his long staff. That giant was still puzzled. He didn't know what the escaping giant meant, but Xiao Hua's staff hit his forehead. Needless to say, the giant raised his mace and charged forward. It was simply a replica of the previous one. Another huge tremor, another wave of sound was set off, and everyone was thrown into the air. What was different from before was that this giant didn't wait for Xiao Hua to pick up the long rod again. He dragged the spiked club back and turned around, catching up with the giant that had fled earlier. That graceful turn of his body. TSK, it was simply too vivid. It did not matter if this giant ran away. Just like the Dao sect disciple who ran away first, the thought of running away immediately rose in the hearts of all the giants. They did not wait for Xiao Hua to fly towards them. Instead, they took the initiative and carried the wolf-tooth club on their shoulders without any hesitation. Then, they spread their big feet, which were rarely seen in the Dawn Rain continent, and fled without a trace. The bird cultivators who had barely stabilized themselves in the air were stunned. They also seemed to have woken up from a dream. They had just woken up from the destruction of two bird cultivators. A bird cultivator cried out. Without any hesitation, he soared into the sky and charged towards the clouds. When the other bird cultivators saw this, they also cried out and flapped their wings, wanting to fly away with that bird cultivator. You can stay here! A trace of fierceness flashed through Xiao Hua's eyes. His figure also flew, and he was actually much faster than the bird cultivators. He charged towards the bird cultivator who had just killed the Tai Ching sect disciple. That bird cultivator was greatly alarmed. Without any hesitation, he charged towards Xiao Hua, extending his unusually sharp beak. However, just as he extended his beak, he seemed to have realized something. His wings flapped, and his figure quickly turned around, drawing an arc in the air as he tried to escape again. At this moment, Xiao Hua's figure was only about 3 meters away from him. At such a close distance, How could Xiaohua let him escape? The long staff in his hand danced again, and like a jade pillar supporting the heavens, it stabbed straight towards the bird cultivator's abdomen. Seeing that it was about to hit the bird cultivator's body suddenly emitted a tricolored brilliance. The bird cultivator's flying speed suddenly increased, and the distance between them immediately increased again. Damn it, if it's half a foot longer, I'll stop! Xiaohua cursed angrily. Just as he was about to activate the hibernating lightning escape, something strange happened. That 2-foot-long staff suddenly grew half a foot. I owe this. Xiaohua was shocked. Of course, even if the staff grew half a foot longer, it still wouldn't be able to hit the bird cultivator. This half a foot that suddenly grew was not seen by anyone. Hit, in a hurry, Xiaohua didn't have time to check. He activated the hibernating lightning escape and suddenly sped up. The long staff suddenly struck out, hitting the bird cultivator's abdomen. Pooh! A mouthful of blood was spat out. The bird cultivator screamed miserably, curled up his wings, and fell from Xiaohua's side. Xiaohua casually took the bird cultivator's storage pouch. If he didn't pay any more attention, that bird cultivator's body would have long been smashed to pieces by the long staff. How could he still be alive? Don't go! Leave a few more behind! Xiaohua shouted, but his body slowed down. He no longer used the hibernating lightning escape. The bird cultivators were scared by Xiaohua's beating. These few shouts actually caused the bird cultivators' bodies to sway slightly. They really thought that Xiaohua had caught up to them. When they saw that Xiaohua was only standing in place and didn't chase after them, they finally relaxed. They didn't even dare to look back and directly rushed into the sky. When they couldn't see him anymore, they fled far away. Damn it, did this young master go too far again? Xiaohua's divine sense swept over. He saw that the dozens of people below him were standing there in a daze. They were all looking at him with an inconceivable expression. Even the people from the Imperial Thunder sect were the same. Yes, this time, Xiaohua didn't use the Phoenix Dharma body. Even so, he still fiercely scared away dozens of giants with his strength alone. He even killed 3 bird cultivators and drove away the bird cultivators who they saw as snakes and scorpions. They didn't have any killing methods at all. Was this still a Foundation establishment cultivator? Forget it. Xiaohua sighed and closed his eyes. The true essence in his body also stopped flowing. His body fell from the sky upside down. Xiaohua, Ming Mao and Dui Ling were already prepared. As if their hearts were connected, they simultaneously flew into the sky, wanting to catch Xiaohua. Good, Cui Hongshan, I'll remember you. Xiaohua was angry. I saved you again. Why aren't you hurrying over to catch me? If I let 2 female cultivators catch me, how am I going to explain it to Shui Shui? Just as he fell into Ming Mao's embrace, Xiaohua finally woke up. He forced himself to stand in the air and said to Ming Mao and Dui Ling with a bitter smile, "Many thanks to the 2 of you." This Xiao cough. Immediately after, Xiaohua coughed and his entire face turned red. -8. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.